Well, the clock on the wall, I think, says 6 o'clock, as best I can see it from here. So I would like to call this meeting to order. Before we get started with the agenda and our topics, I want to acknowledge the passing of Willie Marchman, who was a commissioner here for probably 7 or 8 years. Willie died on the 15th of August. And I think, as I say, he'd been a long-time member of this commission. He was married to Shirley Marchman, who is a councilwoman. They've been married for 56 years. So a long-time resident of Villarica and very active, obviously, in the community. Now, Willie was probably the quietest member of our commission. He didn't often have a lot to say, but he was pretty decisive in his decisions, and we could pretty much always count on his presence. So, and in fact, about a year and a half ago, he was awarded a certificate of excellence by Ron as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So again, Willie will be missed, and we'll be advertising for his replacement. So if any of you are interested, that position will be open. But for now, I'd like to call for a moment of silence in honor of Willie. So if you would. Thank you very much. And with that, let's move into the agenda, and I'll call for an adoption of the agenda. Any comments, any changes that anybody would like to see or make? Okay, it's been moved to adopt. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Old business, you have received in your package the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any corrections or changes that are needed to the minutes? That was a pretty full agenda, pretty full meeting. So, but I think everything seems to have been pretty well captured. What's the commission's position?
Move we adopt the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the minutes as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved. Okay, new business. Mr. Johnson.
Good afternoon, commissioners and members of the public. Tonight, I have an application before you for a rezoning request, RA-07-21, which is a rezoning of 116 Reed Road from agricultural AG, single family, to R2 single family urban. This is a request that's being made by Inline Communities, and the proposal is for of course, if this rezoning is to be approved, it would be to construct 194 single-family homes on the site. This is a 75-acre site that's currently owned by Tanner Hospital. It's been vacant since its existence. Nothing has ever been developed there. It's currently just a kudzu lot. And just for the members of the public, we're talking about a parcel that fronts on, I believe, Tolbert Drive, and it's directly in the rear of the Starbucks on Highway 61. As we know, that we have a lot of development growth in that area of the city. We've seen the completion of Augusta Woods. We've seen an additional phase that came before you for Twin Oaks last month. And we're seeing additional pressures along that same corridor as well. So we're definitely growing quite tremendously over there. As of right now, from based off of my review, I do have just one concern as far as just the infrastructure is concerned. So I did recommend a condition to be attached to this application to where they would need to get a letter from our utilities department that confirms sewage and water availability. As we know, it's kind of like a U shape. Our sewer system down Highway 61 goes down just to be pumped back up on the opposite sides. So obviously there's some significant challenges there, and we need to be able to confirm that we have the capacity for 194 more homes. Especially with, of course, other developments ongoing or potentially starting up, such as Charleston Place is following phase. Summergate may be potentially having a second phase as well. And Avamore, as we know, is a massive mixed-use community that's proposed. So we have a lot of moving parts, so that's why that condition is actually there. And I believe the applicant is here. From Inline Communities, we have Brian here to give you guys a presentation on their application, so they can maybe flesh out some more of these details for you.
A little bit surprised that we don't have more information about the availability of water and sewer before this even gets this far.
Yeah.
Shouldn't
Yeah.
this-
And the reason for that is, and I kind of have to go back to this and the merits of what exactly this application really is. It is just a rezoning. So the parcel can be rezoned, but by the time that it comes back for a preliminary plat or really the final plat when it comes to the city council, all of those things need to be in place. We need to be able to confirm that. So it's really the applicant's prerogative to find that out sooner rather than later. So I've had a conversation with the applicant, and I've explained to them that this would be a requirement for us. And I have no idea if we do have that capacity or if we don't, but that's something that they would have to take up with the utilities department at some form. So they felt comfortable with moving forward with the rezoning application anyway today. And that still would be a requirement upon any type of final plat being issued.
I do have a question, Mr. Johnson.
Go ahead, Matt.
There's a letter in here, proposed zoning, it's more like a memorandum. A proposed zoning on property by Inline Communities, notice of constitutional challenge. Who drafted that? There's no signature that I received.
Let's see, hold on one moment.
It was a page and a half memo.
Sure, I see.
It cites the OS Advertising versus Rubin case from Cobb County Board of Commissioners versus POS, Gradois.
Yes.
Who actually penned that?
I would have to actually defer to the applicant.
Okay.
To
He's
answer that
raising
one.
his hand back there.
Okay.
Well, wait,
Oh,
It couldn't be here, or he's running late, I guess, but Joe is.
Would you,
come on up.
would
Just
you
for
come to the
record.
microphone, please?
Yeah, come to the record, please.
Apologize, Brian Musoff, Inline Communities. Is this on? Y'all hear me?
Is that green light on?
It is?
Okay. You good to
Okay.
go?
Okay, all right, sorry about that. Appreciate the time and appreciate the commission hearing us this evening. So Joe Fowler, our attorney's running late, but I'm more than prepared to give a presentation this evening. I'm Brian Musoff with Inline Communities.
Yeah, I was just asking the letter, is this a letter that Joe drafted?
Yeah, I think it's standard fare that he puts in every single zoning application he does.
It just didn't have Hartley Rowe Fowler
Yeah, I
anywhere,
don't know why it doesn't.
or his signature on it.
Yeah, he's
Hey,
the one that submitted.
It does say that it was stamped in Pillorica City Hall in August, though. Okay, I was just wondering.
Well, isn't this sort of almost like a form letter? They send some, that attorneys, applicants' attorneys send sometimes if they're
Yes, sir.
anticipating or trying to thwart some kind of negative action against their request, and because well, they're just putting us on notice. If they don't get what they want, they're going to sue us.
I think, and I'm not an attorney, so I can't, and I'm sorry Joe's not here to speak to it, but my understanding is if you don't have that letter as a part of your application, then you've given up your constitutional right to ever sue in the future. So I don't think, I mean, I think what you're saying is accurate, but it's not our intention to sue anybody about anything. But I think in order to reserve that right, that's got to be a part of any zoning application. It's standard fare in
Yeah.
the state of Georgia, and it's something, you know, I've been zoning properties for a very long time, and it's always been something.
I think we've seen these before, have
Yeah.
we not? No.
Yeah, that's what I was asking
There's no,
about.
it was just no name on it.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have a presentation that you,
I do, I think we may be having technical difficulties.
Yeah, we've run into a couple. Now, yes, we handed them out to each board member, so.
So if it works for y'all, we can just kind of go through it in order, and I'll try to be brief and descriptive for the audience. And I'm sorry that we're having an issue here. We also have our traffic engineer who's also stuck in a little bit of traffic, which is somewhat ironic. And he is.
Poetically ironic,
He had a
actually.
video on there to show some of the traffic on there, but obviously we won't be able to show that this evening. But just real quickly, location, I think everyone knows where it is, just south of 20, behind the Starbucks, as Ronald explained earlier, so I can go past that first slide. The second slide shows the site plan that shows the surrounding uses around it. So in addition to the Starbucks that Ronald mentioned, we've got residential, single-family detached on us, between us, or we're between them to the north and the south. The neighborhood to the south is a little bit more dense than what we're asking for. They're 3.1 units to the acre, and then 2.7 immediately to the north. And then there's, what we're proposing is 2.6, so a little bit below what is immediately adjacent to us. The next slide shows the future land use, which is suburban village. It's my understanding in some suburban village, you know, we could be here requesting a PUD, O&I, medium density, multifamily, single family attached, all of those work under this, you know, zoning conditions. What we've got before you tonight is a straight R2 with no variance requests at all. And a lot of that is we have had a lot of conversations with Tom Barber and Ron. They really pushed us towards that, you know, that would make the most amount of sense here. And we had discussed and looked at some PDs earlier regarding the infrastructure. While we're on that right now. We've had conversations with Bobby Elliott. We've made a formal request about 45 days ago on water and sewer. We've had conversations with Tom as well. And so I think we have a pretty good feel for that the availability is going to be there, but we do not have the formal letter yet.
but you've looked into this?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely. Since the very beginning, as we've been doing our due diligence, geotechnical, phase 1 environmentals, you know, the whole 9 yards. And we have obviously a fairly sophisticated seller with Tanner being the seller, so we've like we always do, been, you know, right on top of everything.
And Ron, Bobby feels there's an adequate supply for utility to the site from the city.
He has not indicated at either direction to me.
Yeah, we have not gotten an official response yet, but based on conversations I've had, we feel good about going forward.
Okay.
But we have not gotten-
So, but that's going to be a condition of approval, is that correct?
Correct, that's what's proposed or recommended from the staff.
Number 1 condition.
And okay. You know, I wish also that in these approvals, that it had a condition in there that construction and development may not proceed until things like that get satisfied and the information be put on file, because we surely don't want anybody out there cutting down all the trees and moving dirt around and then find out, whoops, well, no, we can't get water to the site.
Yeah, and no one less than me. Obviously, I don't want to close on this property. It's millions of dollars, spend millions of dollars developing it, you know, without having all of our I's dotted, you know, and T's crossed regarding that.
And if I can just chime in also on that, the condition, and I'll read it out for the audience here. It says, receipt of a favorable sewer and water capacity letter from the city's utilities department guaranteeing availability to service all lots within the proposed development within 60 days. This letter must be on file with the city's community development department upon receipt. So that really gives them a timeline to kind of work off of, and it's great that the applicant actually was able to kind of make inroads with that prior to this meeting. But they do also have 60 days beyond the city council date in order to get the letter, to us. So it would have to be on file. If the 60 days runs out, for example, then the zoning is retroactive, and it would go back to what it is, so no one can develop.
But
Beyond
some
that.
people have a tendency to kind of jump the gun a little bit, and they'll be out there moving dirt around and cutting down trees and things, thinking, oh yeah, it's coming, we got it, it's made deal, it's a done deal. But we still don't have it in hand.
That's very true, and I guess not to be argumentative, but someone can do that now. The property
Well,
owner can still do that.
Let's stop that.
Yeah. I don't know if we could really do that.
Well,
By law.
All right.
Because anybody can apply for a grading permit,
well then, don't give them a grading permit until it's done.
I'm
That's,
fine with that being a condition, if that's something
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah.
I got zero interest in doing any grading on the property until
okay.
we have.
I just
everything
think
we have.
construction should not proceed until all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed.
We're on the same page, sir.
Okay.
Well, I've looked at this, and my office is literally right beside it, I just left there. It goes back to the question I had, again, it's not your fault, but I have to ask the question again. This puts another 195 homes, this puts another 400 cars essentially at that intersection, that's already congested and slow. Does the city, and Mr. Johnson, maybe you can answer this, does the city have plans to do anything at that South Carroll Road area? I mean, we're gonna cul-de-sac, I know they're gonna give $25,000 towards improvements, but I think we all know how much 25,000 goes in the world of construction, that might get us a curb. But that's great, I'm glad you're doing it. But my point is, do we have a concrete plan of roundabout, traffic light, decel lane, something to improve that Talbot Road, South Carroll Road, 61 stretch, if you will?
Sure.
Because I think perfectly, look, he's right. There's single-family houses north of them, single-family houses south of them. It makes sense this piece of property becomes single-family development. But I do have a question about where's these 400 cars a day gonna go? And how they're
Sure.
gonna get there?
Well, I'll just take a quick stab at this. I have not talked to the city engineer in relation to the traffic study that has been that was submitted. I received one today from the applicant. I haven't actually gone through that report yet, but again, I'm also not a traffic engineer. But I would have to get with Bobby prior to the city council meeting to discuss that report and if there's any recommendations that he has related to traffic. You are probably correct. There probably is going to be about 400 or so cars. That's
Give or
just,
take.
we live in a car culture in
Yeah.
Villa Rica.
Give or
And,
take. Yeah.
I really, being that I'm sure you're aware of the site, your office is near there, that there are 3 different ways to get to 61 from this site. Cutting through the shopping center where the Starbucks and the Moe's is, and also going out by Tolbert and Reed Road area.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a very
But
dangerous
is that
intersection.
is that the route that the vast majority of people are going to take? I don't know,
And there looks like there's only one point of ingress and regress because they're under the 200 home mark, right?
Yeah.
200
Yeah,
homes.
no
you have to
matter
have
how
two
you
points.
get out there, it only shows one road.
There's only one road in, but I know
Yeah.
what you mean. When you come out, you're correct. You can go straight, directly across through
Straight left or
Bojangles.
right.
Or you can make a right and go back down towards, by the old bank, Social Security building. Or you can make a left and go Talbot Road. And if you're trying to cross 61 right there, that's a little bit dangerous at Talbot Road, the crest of that hill. That's very dangerous, actually.
But there may be as much of a problem just getting out of the development.
Yeah, but well, again, that's just, again, that's kind of looking down the road, and I'm not blaming you, sir, because I think what you're proposing is definitely within the bounds of the zoning rules. It's just something as a city we have to start looking forward to and not get caught behind trying to catch up. And you don't want to try to fix it, as we've learned with the roundabout over on Punkintown. We tried to fix it afterwards, and we still ain't quite got it right. But it took almost an act of Congress to get that done. But it's just, that's what I worry about, because my office is literally right beside there. I'm probably less than a quarter mile from there, and I watch the traffic out you know, out my window throughout the day and listen to the screeching of tires. Oh, who hit somebody today? Which,
Well, you've got the presentation in front of you, you
Yeah.
see that we're gonna address that in here, and
Yeah.
I actually, Abdul Amir, with, who's our traffic engineer and prepared the report, is here, so
That's on
when
this
we
slide,
get
yeah.
to that slide,
Good deal.
I think he does have some recommendations, you know, some concrete thoughts.
Cool.
So we can talk about traffic, you know, y'all can ask him a million questions.
As far as the housing designs, some of the ones we saw photographs of, is that, I mean, obviously, there's a minimum that we have here in the city square footage. I do, and Ms. Johnson can tell me, the 6-foot setback, if I'm looking on the last page, is that within the side setback of 6 feet? Does that meet city requirements?
Sorry, what page was that?
Very last page of their pamphlet.
Okay.
Says side setback 6 feet.
What happens when you print my presentation, you're not supposed to see that slide. That was the notes for me, so I could look at it, but they printed it. But yeah, so that's the site data table.
Yeah.
And my understanding from the engineer is every single thing in here meets the code,
Yeah.
per your code.
Does 6 feet meet it on side setback? I knew it was
Yes.
10 and 25 on the buffers and the front setback, so 6 feet between. So pretty much I can lay down between the houses about as far as we're gonna get. All right,
Well, between the house and the, 6 each, so you'd have to lay down twice.
okay.
Can we get back to your presentation? You're
Yeah,
on
go ahead,
the,
sorry, bud.
Yeah, so
on the site that shows the layout. Are you satisfied with the single road?
Yeah, so let me talk, I'll walk you through the whole thing and then we can
Okay.
discuss that. And this is my favorite part, because I think we've got a great plan. I think we've got a very high-quality product and project we're gonna bring in. As you can see on there, we've got a big central park in the middle, you know, and just real quickly, R2, my understanding is there's no open space requirement. I mean, if we wanted to, we could have just lined houses curb to curb through this, you know, whole neighborhood and follow, you know, R2 zoning. But what we've done, as y'all can see, is we've created a lot of different amenities throughout here, both an open space and amenity very near the entrance, and then a large central park that all those homes will front on, so that we put a street network around it, we're paying for all that extra road, so that those homes can all front on a big green park. And then in the middle, right before the stream crossing, we've got a pool, cabana, and parking lot right there, so we'll have a whole separate swim, you know, amenity right there. And then we've got trails, and it's kind of hard to see on this slide because it's so small, so I'm sorry we can't blow it up on the screen. We've got trails, 0.75 miles, so 3/4 of a mile of trail in one direction through here. So someone can do a 1.5 mile loop of exercise trails and stay on the property the entire time. So we've got a lot of things going. I think it's gonna be a really high-quality product. And this is, and we'll get to, you know, the statistics in here in a moment, but you know, we think that this meets the way a lot of people want to live today. Yes, you're correct. Commissioner Pilgrim, it is smaller lots with smaller setbacks, but there's so many people who don't want to live on a half-acre more or a larger lot and have to cut all that grass and spend all that weekend. This is kind of the missing middle. You know, these homes will, you know, would sell in the 300,000 price points, is where they should be. But what it allows them to do is have a product and a, you know, a low maintenance lifestyle. You got very little yard to take care of and all those sorts of things, and then highly amenitized. They'll all be 2-car garage, and we've added an additional buffer around the perimeter of the neighborhood as well. Regarding the access, what we've done is we've got one main access there, you know, on the frontage. However, we do, as you'll see, if you look at kind of at bottom cul-de-sac along the frontage, we do have a second emergency entrance and exit there as well. That's not necessary because, as you mentioned, we are under the 200 lot threshold, but we just thought from a safety measure and just from a good planning standpoint, we would go ahead and create that and have that there. So there is a second entrance. If a tree falls across the entrance, people can still get in and get out.
Good.
Something like that happens. And speaking of trees, there are, as you know, some really nice large trees there. That's partially why we've centered the entrance where we are. We're going to try to keep as many of those really large oaks across the entrance that we can. So we're working with that. We'll also have a left-hand turn lane in and a right-hand decel lane in, you know, into the neighborhood. But
Okay.
going to the next slide, those are representative photos of amenities, of what we expect this to look like. And as you can see, some of the walking trails, playground areas around the pool and cabana, where actually that'll probably be in the center part, because we're talking about that. And then we're also talking about doing a small dog park as well. Jump into the next slide. It's pretty, it's pretty amazing, the amount of, the very, very small amount of homes that are available right now in Villa Rica. And this is from actually today. We pulled an FMLS search. In the entire city of Villa Rica, there's 13 homes listed for sale.
Really?
13 homes, and if you are just in the city limits of the city of Villa Rica. It's amazing, and as you'll see here, and that's a 1 month's, supply of inventory, and as you'll see, or less than 1 month's supply, and as you'll see, it's an issue that, we've got going across this entire United States. Y'all aren't the only ones dealing with it, but this is the extreme of the situation that I've seen anywhere in, Metro Atlanta, just how short you all are on housing and how little inventory there is,
But that's not a bad thing, because
Right.
we lived through the 08, 09, when it was the other direction, so maybe
Does that,
a more conservative approach may not be a bad
That's
thing.
right.
We saw what happened, we had too many on one side, not enough on the other.
Sure, but as a developer, you can understand how it gives me a lot of confidence.
I agree.
I know there's a lot of things, that have been approved or are also in the pipeline, so to speak.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of capacity,
Does that, did that include Mirror Lake? Because it seems to me there are that many homes in Mirror Lake.
According
sale.
to, and I guess all of Mirror Lake is in this, is
Yeah.
in the city.
It
is.
Yeah, so, yeah, as of today.
And those
Okay.
are actives that you looked at, I'm
That's right,
assuming.
active as of today.
Okay.
So it's just pretty amazing. But like, like I was saying earlier, right now, we're building less homes in the United States than we were in the 90s. Going to the next couple of slides, there's elevations, examples. These are examples, but we do think there'll be, y'all have a good code, but there'll be a mix of brick, stone, and clapboard siding and hardy plank siding. And so those are examples of homes, the width and size and look of the type of homes that, we anticipate having here. The next slide is the traffic pattern ones, and this is at the point where I'll probably ask Abdul to come up and talk a little bit about traffic, and y'all can ask him all the questions you have. As Commissioner Pilgrim already mentioned, we saw in the traffic report exactly what we were talking about at South Carroll and Tolbert, that there is a little bit of a backup there. And so that's, Abdul can talk about potential system improvements there, but, we're talking, what we've just said, and, I never even talked to Ron about this, so this is the first time he's heard about it as well. Hey, we're willing to be, as being good neighbors, put something forward, whatever that improvement is. So that was the thought there. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a decel lane coming into the neighborhood and a left-hand turn lane. So, along our frontage, we shouldn't be slowing traffic down or anything like that. I think that's it for right now. So, Abdul, if you want to stand up and maybe talk a little bit about any of the other traffic questions they have, and then I think the only other slides on here are the recommendation, a little bit about myself and my partner, which isn't important, and then the rest were just kind of my notes. So with that, I'll let Abdul talk, and then I'm happy to come back up if y'all have any questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, evening. My name is Abdul with A&R Engineering. I'm a traffic engineer. We did a detailed traffic impact study for this project and studied several intersections around the site. Just the highlights of it. and we'll
Excuse
see-
me,
Yes.
Ron, did you check his mic? I don't think.
I'll get you closer. Is it better?
I've never heard myself.
No, hang on a minute, let him see.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is this on now? Oh, great.
Oh, yes, much better.
Now you're hot.
Thank you.
I'll start all over. Good evening. My name is Abdul. I'm a traffic engineer with A&R Engineering. Do a lot of work in Paulding County and similar developments. We were asked to do a traffic impact study that I'm just going to highlight some things out of it. I know the city staff didn't get a chance to look at it in detail, but what we do as traffic engineers is estimate traffic that this project will generate based on statistical data from similar projects around the country. There is a book actually we have, it's called ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, Trip Generation Handbook. So we use that, which has data from hundreds and hundreds of similar projects. So for something of this size, we're projecting in the morning, for example, obviously residential exiting traffic will be the highest, not so much entering. We're projecting 107 cars will exit this project in 1 hour, peak hour. That doesn't mean that's all that leaves in the morning. It's just 1 hour is what we look at as the worst hour. 107 cars will be leaving that. Now, we talked about 3 possible ways to get in and out. Once you start dividing that up in 3 different directions, now you're looking at in the neighborhood of 35 or so cars leaving in an hour going out in any particular direction. That's about an hour, 60 minutes, 30 cars, 1 car every 2 minutes. Just kind of want to give you some order of magnitude what we're talking about here. PM peak is similar, except it's a little bit higher. But that's kind of what you're looking at, adding 2 cars and 1 car every 2 minute type of thing. So we have an access to State Route 61 at the traffic light, and then at South Carroll, and then we have Tolbert Drive, which is not signalized and it's a little harder to turn in and out of there. Most people use that heading north on 61 to turn right, and that's how I expect some of our entering trips will turn right in there. But some of the folks coming down south on South Carroll Road turn left on Tolbert Drive just to come back down to 61 and make a difficult turn at an unsignalized location. I think they're just trying to avoid the signal and they have to wait time there. But as Brian mentioned, at the proposed entrance to the project, we're recommending and they're willing to do everything we can possibly do to eliminate any conflicts there and reduce congestion by building a left turn lane and a right turn lane. We were kind of not really above the thresholds, but we recommended one so that at least their entrance is beefed up so they're not causing any disruption of traffic on Tolbert Drive. The traffic signal itself works on 61 at South Carroll, works at a acceptable level of service. However, Tolbert Drive and South Carroll Road intersection has some geometry issues to it, has some
It's a nice way to put it.
there are certainly some things that can be done, let me put it that way. So we are recommending that that be looked at. It's really an existing condition that we have quite a bit of folks that turn right today from Tolbert Drive onto South Carroll Road and the opposite direction turn back left. That's really the predominant movement that's happening there, other than the through movement on South Carroll Road. Left turns aren't that heavy, so they're controlled by a stop sign, and it's the right turns that are really predominant in the existing condition. This particular project is not anticipated to add a whole lot to that right turn movement. I think most of the traffic from this development is going to be oriented to 61. There will be some that will go there, but they won't exacerbate that existing heavy right turn or the opposite left turn too much. That's something that I think we need to look at as a system improvement, which means it's an existing condition. City can look at a possible improvement. I can assist looking at it a little bit deeper in concept wise to see what can be done within the existing right of way. And then maybe our clients can help out in whatever ways they can as a good neighbor, like you mentioned. But in general, that's what I had to say. I think they're doing what they can. It's not a significant impact in terms of traffic once you look at 3 ways to come in and go out. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I do have one. I see one of the areas that you highlighted was the road between Starbucks and I guess that's Bojangles.
Yes.
The car wash. Is that private property right there? Is that road private property?
I'm not sure.
So if the owners of those properties said no through traffic, they could shut it down and that would stop that area pass through, would it not?
I'm really not sure.
Okay.
Maybe the city staff or Brian, you all know if that's a public road or a private street connecting 61 to Tolbert Drive where Bojangles is.
Right through Bojangles, and as my son calls it, Bojangles.
Question was, can this possibly be
If
closed?
If the traffic got too heavy and it was interfering with their business, could they just put up some cross ties and say, hey,
Mac,
Nobody cuts through.
isn't there a common law usage and it takes over? I mean, I'm kind of
Easement by
familiar,
prescription?
kind of familiar with that area too, but it's, you know, there's so many cars that go through there.
There is.
Yeah.
It's not just a one-off thing or something that just started to happen there.
Yeah.
There's a ton of them going through there, and I think they would have a hard time closing that off.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking, if they're private property and they got tired
Yeah.
of pass through, they could say, hey, we're gonna block the access to 61 if you want to access our
But
business.
they've certainly given it the appearance of a public
I agree.
thoroughfare.
I agree,
It
because there's
does. It
island.
looks like a public road.
There's island and a median, but,
I'm checking now.
okay. Because that, I mean, that's just something to consider. I mean, again, I still think your proposal meets all the zoning requirements.
That's a great question because that was a single owner that developed that property.
Because I looked at buying the building adjacent to it at one time.
It sure looks like a public road. I mean,
Oh, I agree. I just know the guy that owns the car wash. I know the guy that runs the Mo's there, and they have limited parking as it is, and sometimes with Starbucks backs up around the corner, all the coffee.
Based off the Carroll County Tax Assessor's website,
Yeah.
it does show it as a public street.
Okay.
It just lists it as Bojangles. It doesn't say street or anything like that. I don't know if that's a goof or if that's the case, but it is outlined in yellow, the same as all other roads surrounding it, including 61 and Tolbert Drive.
Okay. And if that's, again, that might be something that has to be looked at, but again, something to consider.
It doesn't appear that it's actually constructed to the standards of an actual public road just from looking at it, but
Gotcha.
I gave it a name not knowing, so I called it a SR61 Turbo Dry Connector, in case you guys are looking for a name.
okay. I see.
It's been named. It's
Well, thank you
Abdul
very
Boulevard.
much.
It's
That's,
Abdul Avenue.
It's a mouthful,
It's been
yeah.
named.
that's a very good traffic report, and we don't usually get those kinds of numbers
No, we don't.
that we see. So that's very good. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Because I'd like to open this to a public hearing.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Is your development going to implement an HOA? Is that going to be a mandatory HOA?
Yes, sir.
And are you going to have a rental restriction
If we,
built into your HOA? Is that part of your plan? Or
yeah,
idea?
if typically we have one somewhere around 10%, on any HOA controlled neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Does that include Section 8?
I've never really dealt with Section, I don't know that I've ever really thought about
Section 8.
excluding a Section 8 or
It pays
including
up
Section
to-
8.
Section 8s are paying up to about $2,200 a month some places now.
Yeah, so the mortgages here, just to give you an idea, because I've run the numbers, and just generally how we think about things. So within a 5-mile radius, the average household income of this site is $70,000, which is pretty high. I was, really pleasantly surprised by that, because you look in a lot of other places in the metro area and it's, 50% of that, 2/3 of that. So it's really high, which allows someone to qualify for somewhere between a $315,000 and $325,000 home. So the average median person would be able to afford that. 50% would be able to afford more. 50% would be able to afford less. So I think that's where the price point's going to hit. That mortgage puts you at like $2,200 before you're even HOA. So to cut back to that, I think if someone's not renting these things, you're losing money if you're not renting them closer to $3,000. But by the time you're paying for the upkeep and your HOA and everything else, just to give you an idea, I think what they would have to rent for if someone were to rent one as a investment or something like that.
Tell them their old banker recommends no more than about a $250,000 mortgage on a $70,000 income.
About 3 times.
And
Fair
that's going to push it a little bit, even that.
Fair enough. And that's today's prevailing interest rates,
I
right?
know.
Obviously, those could push up and get us right back to,
And there's also
rule of
that
thumb.
kid you didn't plan on and the little things like that.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for,
Well, I will just say that the city would greatly appreciate, the residents of the city would greatly appreciate some type of rental cap in there, because the neighborhoods that are adjoining or that are adjacent up and down from this property you're looking at, got caught in the bubble of the
Downturn.
2000s, and
Yeah.
now there's all sorts of weird things going on as far as who's responsible for what, this way and that way. We've got
Yeah.
some companies
Absent-
coming
yeah,
in, buying
yeah.
as many houses as they can just for the sole purposes
Yeah.
of renting.
Yeah,
So that's a
absentee
concern.
landlords are the absolute worst kind of landlords, and if you own a home and you don't live in it, and you don't live in that neighborhood, it's a
The California,
It's a terrible
the
situation.
California, Arizona companies are buying just literally streets at a time if they get their hands on them. And artificially inflating the prices and doing so, and then have absolutely no interest in maintaining the property other
Yeah.
than long enough to flip it to the next company. Which I have no problem people making money. I'm not objective to that
Sure.
whatsoever. But we end up kind of picking up pieces.
Well, if there are no other questions for the developer, I'd like to open this to a public hearing at this time. So anybody that would like to come forward to speak for or against this development, we'll give you 3 minutes. And any questions that you have, we will not respond as a commission, but certainly welcome to hear your questions and concerns. So at this time, anybody wishing to come forward? I see no hue and cry for, whoops. Please state your name and your address in 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. My name is Homer Danley, and I own 6 acres across from the Connors Road part of it. And I was a little bit confused because I didn't realize you were talking about the Bojangles. Is this on the south side?
It's the wrong one, it's later on.
Oh,
This is the new.
okay. I said something. Okay, that's it then. Okay.
That was a great question. Wish we had answers for all of them.
I think they call that foreshadowing in literature.
I move that we close public comments.
Yeah, I see no further comments. Revert back to Ron. Ron, do you have any other comments that you would make?
No other comments at this time.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
What is the commission's desires then? I would entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve this request with conditions as stated in the Planning and Zoning memo as prepared by Mr. Johnson.
Is there a second?
I would second it, same conditions as stated by staff and the
Okay, it's
recommendation.
been moved and seconded that we approve. Any further comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Very good presentation. Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
It was very good. Okay, Ron?
Our next order of business, I have application number ALT-02-21, which is Avamore at 55 and 63 Goldworth Road. This request is for an extension of the rezoning that was initially granted in 2018, and they've ever since have been submitting annually to have this zoning continuously, extended. So, as a part of my conversations with the applicant, and there has been some ongoing work out there, as we remember, or actually didn't come to this commission, it went directly to council, but there was a variance request a few months back, which was granted in relation to some stream buffers and things. So there's some active work actually being done on the property, even though the public can't actually see that, but there's plans in the engineer's office for the first phase, and it looks like they're trucking along. But this request is not just for an extension, it's also to alter the rezoning conditions that were updated, well, the initial ones in 2018, but then they were updated in 2019. There's the potential for some senior housing at this development, and I know that this was in 2018 supposed to be a senior restricted development, which was lifted in 2019. But there's still a push for some senior housing on that property, and As a part of my conversation with the applicant, we went through some of the paperwork from back then, and it became quite clear that the city council never set a limit to the number of senior housing. It was just kind of left ambiguous. So we of course can't do that if they're ready to move forward with the first phase and it actually has senior housing a part of it. It can't just be open-ended. We don't want 1 million of senior housing out there. We need to know what the parameters are that we're working with, and
When we
especially
say
the developer.
senior, are we talking, just so we know the definition of senior, are we talking 55 and older, 65 and older, are we talking about disabled? What qualifies as senior, as far as the city is concerned?
Yeah, so the city doesn't have an actual definition for senior.
How can we set a number of senior residents if we don't have a definition of what senior is?
Because as a part of this rezoning, we can set what a senior apartment is for this development, what exactly that means. So we would basically be defining that tonight. So that kind of gives some additional, I guess, powers in a sense. If you're going to be issuing units, or if you're going to be granting approval for someone to build something, you need to know how many that you're going to allow, and what exactly is the difference between that one versus an apartment versus a townhouse or what have you. So it's kind of open-ended, and I understand that, but we kind of need to come to a resolution tonight in order for him to be able to move forward with the first phase.
And I'm assuming there's a price point situation here that people have calculated how many they're gonna need of each to make this profitable. So I guess Mr. Davis have to tell us what those numbers are, or what he thinks they're gonna be, or?
You could start that way. That's one way to do it.
Okay.
So we can defer to the applicant.
Did you have any other comments that you want to make?
No other comments. I mean, in the letter that was prepared on August 2nd, Mr. Davis did kind of include here in the last paragraph, it says our anticipated plan and layout is already on the site plan for the land disturbance permit. And it would include 200 independent living apartments, flats, houses, 60 assistant living units, and 30 memory care units. All of those things, and this is really important, all of these uses were already permitted as a part in 2018. So we can't take those things back just because he has an alteration of this application. That could happen within the extension, of course, tonight as well. If you choose not to extend this, then of course the entire project is basically dead until he's able to reapply again for it. So just kind of keep that in mind, that these are approved uses already. It's just we just never gave numbers on what they are. The only numbers that the city council gave at that time was for a total number of multifamilies and a total number of single families. So I included that in.
It's 325.
It's actually not in my.
Single family's 250, maximum multi is 325.
That's correct, yeah. So we kind of need to, if those are the numbers that we are working with, we need to know how many of those are going to be, senior or memory care or what have you.
Well, I really like this concept. I mean, this is a great concept, I think. So I hope we can straighten out whatever has to be done to move forward with this. So if you have nothing further, let's hear from Mr. Davis.
I'll just add this one last thing. I mean, I came into this project, I started here in February of 2019, and this was ongoing as is. So you should have received in your packets the staff report that was prepared back in 2019.
Yes.
So that was my original staff report for this project, and that is the updated numbers that happened actually in 2019. So I did take a look at the 2018 staff report that was prepared by my predecessor, which is very similar. I used that as a base. So there are some key differences as far as the senior housing and some of the other conditions that came off the property in 2019. So you are looking at the latest, even though it's dated 2019.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Hannebeck, Mr. Flowers, Mr. Rogers, who I have not met. I'm Jay Davis, and Mr. Pilgrim, thank you for being here tonight. I'm grateful for the opportunity to again be before you and ask for an extension. Frankly, I thought we'd have our land disturbance permit and this wouldn't be necessary, but we're really close to that. So let me give you an update on the project. We are within the guidelines the city's handed us or worked with us to achieve over the last few years. We have a full-on partner for all of the single-family residential units. at price points we discussed way long ago with some really nice housing. It's set up in the phases as are described in the book that you have in front of you. There'll be 46 houses in phase 1, 94 in phase 2, and 110 in phase 3. All of those are accounted for. Price points are really good, so the delay didn't hurt too much there. On the multifamily side, we have a full-on partner with the best apartment developer in in the southern United States anyway. Mesa Capital, they're the best funded. They got the most money. They do Class A apartments. That's what we're going to get. We don't have Class A apartments in Villa Rica now. We're about to have them right there on our site. They'll be directly behind the commercial and retail. Mesa Capital is under contract. I have escrow money in the bank. We're ready to proceed. Same goes with the single-family residential, different builder. Don't really want to reveal that yet, but I'll be talking to them next week anyway. So we've got that under contract. We are meeting, we've had 4 different offers on all of the commercial and retail so far. We are down to the final candidates on that. We'll have a meeting with them actually tomorrow on site as well, to purchase and develop all the commercial and retail, which will be at the front of the mixed-use development as you've seen in the drawings. And they'll bring a grocer there. Again, I prefer not to disclose the grocer yet, but we'll have a grocer, we'll have a pharmacy, we'll have retail stores of all kinds, restaurants, all the kinds of stuff that every human being wants, not just seniors. I don't know how many of you were here. I think you were here, Mr. Hunnebeck, for the initial presentation. This whole thing began because I was trying to find a home for seniors that I care for as the county conservator administrator in the county next door. There wasn't a place to put them. Senior housing was always the focus of this, which is why it was brought about in the first part of this mixed-use diagrams. And we intend to honor that intent. Unfortunately, we never defined a number, and that seems to be an issue here for not only the city, but for lenders. They want to know how much money they're lending me to build these things. For the last 2 years, we've assumed it was 290 units because that's the way we proceeded on. Turns out we need to confirm that. So to that end, our intention is to put on there 290 total units of senior housing. Mr. Pilgrim, I'll help you define that here in a second. Senior housing, for the purposes of what we're trying to achieve here, can be defined several different ways. One of the best ways to do it is say 55 and older, and to meet their care needs, and we can age restrict it to that. That's the simplest way to do it. From an age standpoint, seniors are defined by most in the industry as 65 and older. But what it doesn't allow for if you start at 65 is transitional housing for folks who are out early, who want to come take care of their parents next door and want to live under the same kinds of opportunities that their parents will have in here. So when we're talking about independent living housing, that's usually apartments that are set apart for seniors in a structure of some kind that has more than 10 or 20 units at a time. Oftentimes it has several hundred units at a time. Depends on the scope of the way that the developer wants to do it. Again, I'm the master developer here, but we will partner up with a senior housing developer when that time comes. There's 4 or 5 different kinds of those kinds of senior housing developments across the country, all sorts of mixes and matches. The more you limit me, the less creative we can be in solving what's best for Villa Rica. So we prefer a 290 designation total unit count, 55 and up. But we will amend it as necessary to make sure you're happy. The upshot of it is we expect 200 independent living units and an opportunity for what's called assisted living and memory care. So those are industry terms that probably shouldn't apply in your code books, but basically what that means is assisted living is a type of nursing care that goes beyond just an apartment to live in and somebody bringing by your medicine. It's actual nursing care up to stage 2 pressure bandages. It's you're in a bed, so you have the opportunity to have a bed in your room where they'll monitor your vital stats and all that kind of stuff. That's assisted living. That's kind of high end. And then there's memory care, which is Alzheimer's, dementia patients, folks who can't manage, schizophrenic patients in some circumstances. So memory care usually is a broad industry term that applies to those. folks. We're looking for between 60 to 90 beds assisted in memory care. However, one of the industry functions of development as time has gone by is if the developers in this space like to call every bed, some of them like to call every bed an assisted living bed, so that for all 290, so that they can, from a medical standpoint, adjust to the market need. So it's not always, they'll build every room up to the nursing standard. So it's really a $400 square foot room instead of $180 to $200 square foot room. And they'll just build them all that way and let the market dictate what rooms get used for what purpose. So the idea here is to provide the kind of housing that folks in need can have. There's different groups that buy and sell these things. One of the kinds of them is, an example is National Church Residences. They just do senior housing apartments. They're great. They're all across the country. They have a lot of money. They do good, but they do assisted, income assisted housing. That's not our target in this case, but they do a pretty good job of it, and they do really good work. So that is one on the just high end with relatively few services, but limited to 65 and up kind of deal. That's one example. Another example is Presbyterian Homes of Georgia, which has facilities in Austell here, and then they just did a $250 million one over in Athens, Georgia. They do the full gamut of, they do in-home care for independent living. They'll do assisted living. They do memory care, and they also do skilled nursing. That is one thing I'm not asking for on this site. Skilled nursing requires a certificate of need beds from the state. We do want the capacity to do private skilled nursing beds, which means no certificate of need from the state, people who just want to stay in that room to pass. It's kind of like a hospice bed. We do want the capacity to do that on site. Again, the more you limit me on the development side, the less flexible we can be for the community. So what we're trying to provide here through the Avamore community and the surrounding area that we'll be helping with that sewer and water upgrade, Jeannie, that you were talking about in the bottle a while ago. We're trying to provide a space where human beings like you and me can live, have our parents close by, and have them cared for in some kind of space where, I don't know if you've all cared for your elders yet, but let me tell you, they're like big babies. The worst that they get, it becomes really problematic for families. It tears them apart. So one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that we have an affordable way to do that here in our local community. We feel like we've got the opportunity to provide that here, and our goal is to provide that with these 290 units here at Avamore. We need that defined as far as the city's concerned. Again, our request is for the lowest common denominator on that to leave us the most flexibility. If you want to age restrict it 55 and up and call senior housing, that'd be really great. Make it easy for us. On the sewer and water side, which is just an aside for here, we'll be applying for that tax allocation district funding to help us. I think our community is already got the sewer and water approved, but one of the things we can do with that tax allocation district funding as we move forward will be to build in a pretty large regional pump station that will not only take care of our site, but the sites like the guy earlier and the other ones that are coming. If y'all haven't been informed that we're going to double in size in the next 10 years, you're behind the eight ball. We're getting bigger, and it's not just me, it's everybody around us. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and be a part of the solution, and I think we can help do that for not only me here today on site with this development, but also for our community. Land disturbance permit, we should have had it 3 months ago, but when we asked for that variance, the boundary line, Ronald stuck me, that's what happened. The boundary line actually impinged on the historic museum property. So I'm keeping the old farm place as a museum, and I'm redeveloping it as part of the community. But the boundary line crossed into that, and so then the Corps of Engineers says there's this group called SHPO you need to talk to. Well, it turns out they're the historic preservation people, and they don't approve anything fast. So it's been an extra 70 days so far of hand-wringing and butt-kissing to get, I don't know if I can say that on the radio, sorry. You know what I mean. But all that kissing you got to do to get through it. We're through it. We got the memorandum approved. It's in front of them now for signature. The Corps of Engineers should come back this week, next week, give me the final approval. Then we're ready to go with the city, and we'll start taking off. I'll be at the city council meeting next week to go through the same thing again. questions, whatever you got.
290 that you're asking for.
Yes, sir.
Is that part of the 320 multifamily?
No, sir.
325?
325 multifamilies, Mesa Capital, that'll be strictly market rate, Class A apartments.
Gotcha, okay, all right, so this 290 is just in addition to it?
That's right, and
Okay.
it's clearly carved out on the initial
Gotcha,
drawings we
that's what I
had
thought.
approved.
I just want to make sure, I
Yes,
thought
sir.
that's what it was. So we're talking about all together, this whole project, we're talking about?
865 units.
Good deal.
Well, 800, I'm sorry, less than that. So it's 325, 250, and 290.
And so, Ron, are you, you're comfortable then with us saying seniors are anybody 55 and over?
I would agree with that. Just when I'm
Okay.
looking at the market, you know, we have, and I'll just give you a quick, fast example. Just next to my parents' house, for example, in Douglasville, there's a townhouse development just for seniors. And at that meeting, it was actually called into question exactly what we're talking about right now at Douglasville or Douglas County's meeting. The definition obviously going to be a lot different for a lot of places, but they set their own at 55 and up. They never had that defined either. That's not something that's uncommon at all. I don't think I've ever worked in a jurisdiction where senior housing is actually defined. I think a lot of cities try to cover themselves by not doing that for housing purposes, legal purposes, and exclusion purposes. So we never looked at that in our code. It never came up last year during the rezoning effort as far as definitions. There's a lot of things in the zoning ordinance that's not defined, and that is by design.
But we're not talking about mandatorily excluding anybody under 55.
I can do it by deed restriction if that's something that would make y'all happy, and then you don't have to.
No, I'm just
go-
asking for, we're not intending to actually exclude people from that, from those units, are we? Because, I mean, it could be the case of an elderly widow and her daughter lives with her as a caretaker and stays with her, something like that. I mean, I can see those things happening.
That happens a lot.
And, and by the way, those over 65 should officially be known as geezers.
Speak for yourself.
No comment there.
Well, we do have a defined 55 requirement in Mirror Lake on reflections, do we not? They
Well,
restrict that to 55?
they do, and how that's done, I don't know.
done by deed
It
restriction.
might- I was gonna say, it must be either a deed restriction, I don't even think an HOA would have that type of control. I've never seen that at least, but, I mean,
We will.
And what is the community that's on the south side of Connors Road that's called the senior,
it's a
Village.
the Birches,
yeah? Is that-
That's memory care and
that-
assisted living, but it's limited and it's all hospital type.
I think what you're talking about is directly across from the stop sign out.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, right.
The senior village, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm not certain about exactly if that's just all rental. I assume it is. I believe that it is an all rental community.
It's all rental,
Isn't-
all rental, no services. And
Isn't
no-
that affiliated with Tanner or
It's a
not?
Tanner. That's
No,
a Tanner.
it is not.
It's,
What?
It is not.
It's not with
I
Tanner?
think Birches is, but not
Birches
the
is, Birches is a Tanner deal.
not the community
new-
that Chairman Hanneback
Not,
is.
yeah, not the one you were talking about, John, but the Birches one is the new one that's not quite open yet.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
that's certainly Tanner.
That's definitely Tanner, yeah.
But the one I'm talking about, it's been developed for,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 65 and up. It's age limited by
Yeah.
deed.
Well, I'll tell you, Jay, as somebody who in the last year, my father's currently in a nursing home, and my mother-in-law is in assisted living in Navarre, Florida, because we couldn't find somewhere here.
Right.
This is something that is, I think, would be good going forward, because had we had opportunity, they would probably be a little closer, but neither of them are.
Yep.
We'd had option, but we really didn't have an option.
Yeah, we'll be coming for you. Y'all are gonna see me a lot in the next few months. We're moving stuff around a little bit. Ronald's gonna make me come back in front of you if I turn my nose left and sashay right. You know, he's got it convinced.
We love you,
exactly.
Jay. We love you.
But what we're trying to do here is good for all of us. It's not just It's not just for me. You know, I live here, I work here, all of my people are here, and my mama's already got a house, and I got 4 houses sold to people I love right now. So as soon as we can, and we'll also have in-home care, we'll also have hospice, we'll also have all of that on site in some of those commercial sites. So I need your support, so 290 units, please, and thank you.
Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, I really have been favorably impressed with this plan from the beginning, and actually was hoping that there would be dirt moving out there by now. But I understand the financial, problems and situations, and so. Any other questions for the developer? If not, I would like to open this to public hearing. If anybody has any comments that they would like to make for or against this Avamore project, please come forward at this time. Again, I see no takers, so we'll close public hearings and revert back to Ron. Does the commission have any other questions for Ron? You're satisfied with the recommendations?
Yes, the only thing that I would request from the commission is to split the motions into 2 different motions, one for the extension of the approvals for the rezoning, and another one for the allocation of 290 units for senior housing.
So be it. I'll make a motion to extend, is it 6 months or a year?
1 year.
Okay, I'll make an extension for a 1 year, I'll make a motion for extension of a 1 year from today's date for the Avamore project from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we provide the extension for 1 year to the Avamore project. Any other comments among the commissioners? If not, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Okay, the second motion?
I'd make a motion that we set the senior living as defined by Mr. Davis today at senior unit number, or unit number at 290 as requested by the petitioner.
Been moved and seconded that we allow for the senior living number of units to 290. Any comments?
So my question, do we need to address the 55 age in the motion?
Yes.
My apologies.
Then I would make it that we agree, or make a motion that we set it at 55 as defined as senior citizen, 55 and up, and that we approve 290 units of senior housing with a definition of 55 years and up as the minimum limit.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the extension for senior living to be 55 and up for the 290 units. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Mr. Davis?
I appreciate your help, and I would just recommend recommend it by deed restriction so you guys don't get in trouble. I don't want y'all to face that demon down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Davis.
you. Good presentation. Okay,
Then there was one.
Ron, we're back to you.
Yes. Okay. I think we're at our featured presentation. We have an application for a preliminary plat, and before I start, as we know, typically when we have a preliminary plat, the city engineer is usually here to give a report on any questions that you may have, and also from his engineering standpoint. The engineer advised me late last week that he would not be in attendance tonight. So I'm basically taking this on his behalf. So forgive me if I don't know every question or every answer to every question, but I will do my best. We have a request from LGI Homes, Georgia LLC, for this preliminary plat for a development that's on 3 different parcels here, and I'll just reference the last numbers of those parcels just for clarity. 0010, 0035, and 0003, which is located on Connors Road. I have in your packets an exhibit as well, that was prepared by HRC. Aaron McCullough is here in the audience as well to be able to give some additional information on that. But if you recall, there was at our last meeting, there was a master plan document that came to the Planning Commission for approvals. That was the city-initiated plan, and city, I guess, the city was the one to truly carry that application through. As a part of that, all of the nodes within Mirror Lake that have not been developed, the vacant parcels, were all assigned density numbers and were assigned unit count numbers and things of that nature in order for us to have a much better and much more comprehensive plan out there. And we're not going off of the 1997 Lorber plan any longer, being that plan was I think everyone would agree that plan was simply not comprehensive at all. So essentially, almost anything could be constructed out there, and we would have very little say on what is constructed. And that's not just for this lot, but that's for the remainder of Mirror Lake. We were running out of units. I think that's kind of what, or single-family units, that is, as far as how many can be given. We had, at my last check back in October, when I compiled the numbers in the memo that I'm sure you've all read, we had 81 units that we could issue. That has now dwindled down even further because of the South Harbor sections as well, phases 2A and 2B, which I believe is about, if we were to add those together, somewhere around 77 or so houses, some 78 houses, I believe. So we would have been left with like 3 units. So all of these different nodes would have had to come back anyway. So this is the node that's coming first. Connor's Landing is the proposal here. I'm sorry, I'm just going to open this up a little bit. So the applicant is proposing 196 homes on the parcel.
That's this. Unit.
Yes, that's that there. An application was submitted to us, if you remember, last December for this section, and there's been some changes as a part of that, and obviously the master plan has now been approved for the entirety of Mirror Lake. So we're dealing with a situation that's somewhat similar to that. But again, and this is just me cautioning the board as well, that of course, that's an entirely different application. And so I won't be referencing that too much tonight, because I don't want to, I guess, cloud judgment in any way, because that's not what's before us tonight. But what you're looking at is basically, this is one of the more denser sections of the master plan document that we saw. This is probably the densest single family that we've seen on that master plan. Obviously, the multifamily is probably going to be dense as well. But this is just a strictly single family development. One of the key changes here, though, that you'll see is Nally Road, which would connect from Connors Road to Road A, as it currently is today. Nally Road is not proposed to be abandoned in this one. It was in the December application, but not in this one. Forgive me, I'm gonna have to open this a little bit more. I don't have a smaller version. So as a part of this, I think one of the key questions at the last meeting for the Planning Commission and the City Council meeting was about the amenities. We kind of talked at length about those, and you could see that there is an amenities area. There's some open space areas, existing ponding and detention ponds and things of that nature. As far as I'm aware, I haven't seen what those different amenities are going to actually be. I think at the city council meeting, what I heard at least was that the applicant would have to get a letter from Mirror Lake Homeowners Association for them to, in order for them to join the HOA, they have to be accepted into it. It doesn't appear that that's actually going to happen. I'll leave that up to the applicant to explain if they wish. But it appears that that amenity requirement of 3 amenities is still something that we would require, and something that would have to go in. There has to be some type of amenities here. But they are proposing some off-site improvements as well, including improvement to the traffic circle or installation of a traffic circle at Enclave Drive. And I believe they have, actually, no, I'm not going to say that because I'm not certain. But there may or may not be some sidewalks on or off-site. I don't see them here, so I don't believe that they are. But in either case, this is kind of what we're dealing with. We're looking at lot sizes of about 50 feet wide by 120 feet deep. That's 6,000 square feet. That's on average. There's some in the rear section at the end of Road A, which was previously considered the Falls at Mirror Lake Phase 3. Those lots are larger. You're looking at about 7,800 all the way up to 15,000, over 15,000. So there's some variation in here as far as lot size is concerned, and that would bring the density down from compared to if it was all 6,000 square foot lots, for example. So that's just a consideration for you to have. There's obviously still some buffering, some screening, and things of that nature that would be required, but now the biggest change here is Nally Road would actually stay, and it would stay in the exact same condition that it's in today. I guess from a planning perspective only, that kind of does give some concern to me. I don't know if there's any access to Nally Road from Road A or not. There obviously, being that Road A has not gone in yet, I don't know if there's going to be a curb cut there, or if people will ever have access to that area, or if kids will be back there doing whatever. But in either case, you know, that road is still it's still there. So
Do rear garages, I guess. You can always do the rear garages there if you wanted to, off Nally Road.
that's correct.
Makes them utilize the space.
I don't think that's proposed as a part of the development, but that may very well be a possibility. I'm not sure if the applicant is interested in doing that or not, but in either case, I'm actually just going to reference the Mirror Lake master plan here. Bear with me.
This was like areas 6 and 7 on the
You're right.
Mirror Lake plan.
At track 4 and track 5.
Or track 5.
But there's also the Falls at Mirror Lake section, so this can get quite tricky really quickly because there's, let me see, and I'm just double checking here. Just bear with me.
Well, I don't know if I missed it or not, but it's not in my package, I don't think. There was no memo from staff summarizing this and giving staff recommendations.
That's right. So on all of our plats that we've done here, especially since I've been on board, but even predating me, the staff doesn't give any staff reports or planning reports or anything for plats. So we've wanted to, of course, follow the same that we would do for anyone else.
Okay.
In this case. But in either, what I was saying, if you were to turn, and I'm not sure if you guys have this or not with you and in your document, but track 4 and 5 has a pretty extensive list, and honestly, I want to say it's the longest of all of them, or one of the longest, of different standards that the city was able to negotiate for this development, including full depth brick, natural or cast stone, smooth nature wood siding and or cement-based siding, shake siding, etc. So it's not like you're going to have vinyl sided homes going up all over the place. The city was very adamant about that as a part of the negotiations, for what I understand, as far as the design standards, because we are on this plane and they're on that plane when it came to design standards based off of their first initial submittal to us back in December. So as we know, our zoning ordinance that we updated last year is really extensive when it comes to residential single-family design standards, and that would have included rear entry garages and all types of different things as a part of a PUD. That has now been, as you may see, and I don't know, do you guys have this document with you? I know you did look at it at the last meeting because it was a part of the master
Yeah.
plan. But in either case, the front yard setbacks is 20 feet, side 5 feet, rear setback was 25 feet. That's the requirements. And it looks like they've matched those requirements. The house separation minimum is at 10 feet. So in either case, that's kind of what we're looking at. We're looking at minimum square footages of 1,600 square feet as a part of the plan that was commissioned and approved by the city council. And there's other design standards in here as well. They get very intricate and detailed. There would be requirements for 2-car garages, 18 feet in width for driveways, front or side loaded garages, street lighting, sidewalks throughout the development on at least one side of internal streets. That's a difference than our current zoning ordinance or development ordinance, which would require 2 sidewalk on each side. And the last condition here was the city will need a letter from Mirror Lake HOA that tract 4 and 5 will be admitted to the HOA. Otherwise, these tracts will be required to provide their own HOA with the required amenities as defined by the new zoning ordinance relating to PUD zoning. Obviously, we haven't received that information. I would pass it on to you. The applicant might be able to provide some more information as far as what they're trying to do for the
Now,
HOA.
is this almost kind of across the street from South Harbor? Is it close to the South Harbor? Is it on down past the
It's
schools?
further, it's across from Liberty Point.
It's on down past the school?
It's
I just-
past the school.
Past the
Okay, so
school,
past
past
school.
Tyson Road.
Past, okay.
Yeah.
And these are the last parcels in the city on the south side of Connors Road.
Okay.
I've had some really interesting conversations with some of the neighbors, and it appears that a lot of this, there's some people that have been very much against this project because of the density and traffic and some of the other things that have been at least presented as a part of those conversations. So there's a lot of considerations to be had for that. I haven't had any conversations with Douglas County. This is entirely within our jurisdiction, of course. But obviously, we do have a pass with Douglas County as a part of the arbitration agreement for this third leg of this project, which would only cover the Falls at Mirror Lake section. My discussions with the city attorney is that we don't have to follow that, being that it's not a binding document, and that it was just an arbitration report, and it's not actually filed anywhere or as far as legally filed. So. There's really nothing that can be enforced as a part of that. So that's why we're moving on today. We're trying to just get this last area to be developed as a part of this Mirror Lake. This property that we're talking about was annexed into the city in 2003. At that point, and I have no problems with saying this to you just straight up, the city messed up. We really shouldn't have just added them into this the Mirror Lake development and not assign a density number to it. And now we are still fighting the same battle from 2003. So that's how it's very important that these things are handled appropriately and that we're clear in what we give our approvals to. We just saw that with the last applicant that we're still not clear. So we're trying to clean some of these things up because they have definitely real world consequences.
Ron, I look at this and I know, and I voted against it last time, but I look at this and I look at the designs of the homes. All right, everybody's all happy. We're building houses, people building, developers making money, guys laying sod and making money, brick guys making money, whatever, I get that. But I look forward to 2041 when I'm hopefully still living here. And like the gentleman on commission, hopefully I have their longevity, and I'm still living here. I mean, what are we looking at in 20 years? We're looking at a cookie cutter, 1,600 square foot houses. Is that really what the city of Villa Rica needs? And are we building just for building's sake? Is it just, well, we got it, let's just use it? I mean, is it really going to improve the city of Villa Rica in the long run? And I know that's really not probably part of our job here today, I get that, but I can't help but think that way. Is that we're just going to have street after street after street of cookie cutter houses that are built with the bare minimum requirements, the bare minimum size difference, the bare minimum distance. And what kind of people are we going to attract to our city in 10, 15, 20 years? What are we going to do? What's the next time the bubble busts on the real estate market? What do we got dealing with? We got half-empty houses. We got Section 8 houses. We got rental. That's what we have, and that's where I see things like this going. That's where I see things like this happen, and I just see one after the other, of cookie-cutter houses. I understand you need starter homes. You need starter. I get that, but I don't understand the idea of just needing to build for building's sake. I think there has to be a long-term idea out there. There has to be something where there is there's a plan out there. And what's this going to do how's this going to affect us as a community as a whole? Not just in the next 5 years when people have jobs and there's tap-on fees and there's new property tax. I get all that. But what's it going to do 15 years from now, 20 years from now? What kind of community are we going to build? Are we going to be what other communities around us have become? Or are we going to be our own? And and again, I know planning and zoning really is probably not the place for this. I'm sorry, but I just see things like this. And I saw the other developments a little bit different. The density was a little different. The houses were a little more of an upgrade. These look like apartments. I mean, these look like apartments or garages. And maybe they're great on the inside. Maybe they've got granite and tile and the whole nine. I don't know. Vaulted ceilings and cathedral ceilings or whatever, chandeliers. But I've seen this happen even in Mirror Lake. I've seen developments have fallen short. I've seen neighborhoods, and all you gotta do is go over and drive. Just get in your car and drive over there. There are certain places. If I'm in South Harbor and I've spent $800,000 on a house, I am gonna be very angry at the city of Villarica for letting something like this come in. Like, whoa, guys, I just spent a ton of money on this property, and you're gonna bring in $190,000 houses over here right next door to me. This is killing my value. And not only that, but you're killing the people who we want to bring here. We want to bring people who afford $700,000 house, $800,000 house. That's who we want to attract. If we're gonna grow, we need to grow the right way. I ain't got no problem with growth, none whatsoever. But I do have a problem with setting us up to fail 15, 20 years from now. That's what I have a problem with, because I'll still be here. And that's my issue. And I'm not saying that hopefully this doesn't fail. I hope everybody makes money, and, Aaron, I know him, and I hope they make money on it. But the point is, I just don't like the future. I don't like the direction it trends us to, that's all.
And if I may, Commissioner Pilgrim, an example of some of these homes are in Augusta Woods that LGI has completed, and I know that they've sold legs of their subdivision to Main Street Renewal as rentals, and then held open house while they were all under contract to get some people in there unwittingly, in my opinion, unwittingly. Oh, all these houses are sold, all these houses are sold. Nobody told them they were sold to a rental company.
Well, and again, you speak of South Harbor, this community is really closer to other developments that are not part of Mirror Lake than they are to South Harbor.
Maybe so, but why continue to lower the bar? Why continue to lower the bar? Why not raise the bar? Why continue to keep the bar where it is? Why not raise it? Why not going forward, we realize the mistakes of the past and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to allow this again. We're going to raise the bar. That's my point.
Ron, my question is about the sidewalks in here. You said you don't see any sidewalks. Are they exempt from that condition?
When I referenced the sidewalks, I was talking about on one side would be required. That was what was required in the master plan document. I'm taking a look now at this, and again, I'm kind of picking up from this is something that the city engineer would have looked at. I'm not seeing a detail for them. Maybe only on one side. In the main section here, that is like a landlocked block, if you will, by street. But between roads F and road F, it curves around. But it looks like that one has sidewalks, so it looks like they did actually put sidewalks in here. It looks like they're, it seems like I'm seeing them only in sections, not everywhere, not on every road.
Well, Road A looks like it may have some.
It looks like the section that goes to where the amenities area is, and that whole entire larger section that back there does have sidewalks on one side. I don't see that for the rest of this, where the mail kiosk is, for example, down to Road D. in the Falls at Mirror Lake section, but they very well might have them, so I would defer to Aaron for that. Now, another key part of this as well is, as we recall, and just as a fast history lesson here, in 2003, two of these lots, the ones that are east of Nally Road, were the ones that were annexed. The ones that were west of Nally Road, this back section was a part of the Falls at Mirror Lake, like what we were saying, the phase 3 for that. Obviously, now we know that that's not going to be moving forward, the Falls at Mirror Lake phase 3. But that entire area west of Nally Road, between Nally and in the school, was all subject to again the arbitration agreement, which I'll just advise that what it indicated. But again, it's from speaking to the city attorney, we don't actually have to follow a non-binding arbitration agreement. But it did indicate that the density figures were to stay beyond a certain level. I believe it was certainly less than 3 dwelling units an acre for certain. We may very well be over that. I think when I looked through our memo, it looks like we are already beyond that. So it's just kind of like at this point, I mean, this is what we have, in front of us. There's really no way to correct that, because even if this property was not developed at all, this third leg here on the west of Nally Road, we would still be over the density requirement of the arbitration report anyway. How much, I don't know. How much does this add to it? I don't know. These lot sizes, as you can see, obviously are going to be larger than the 6,000 ones as well. But as a part of this master plan document, I don't see this Falls at Mirror Lake, this section of it at least, even referenced in the master plan document at all. I just see track 4 and track 5, and that's not track 4 or track 5.
That's right.
So I'm just calling that out. But that is something that I'm kind of scratching my head on, because I don't really know where this standard came from for these lots or width. So I'll defer, I guess, to the applicant on that as well. So, and that concludes my comments.
Is the city involved in providing this roundabout at Nally Road?
I unfortunately would have to defer to the engineer, which isn't here. Maybe Aaron may know that as well, but unfortunately, the engineer didn't indicate, as far as off-site improvements are concerned, if the city has any hand in that financially.
And of course, the same is true for water and sewer. Whether
That's
it gets
right.
in
I mean,
there
well,
or
there
not.
would be tap fees and stuff as a part of that, of course.
Is the applicant present?
The applicant's engineer is here, yes.
Okay, would you come forward, please? State your name, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Aaron McCullough. I am with HRC Engineers and Land Surveyors. And because every municipality decided to have planning and zoning meetings tonight, I got the grand responsibility of representing this project tonight to hopefully answer your questions. So a few of the items I know that were brought up by Ron, and that I saw the questions in your eyes. One, the sidewalk item. There's a note about the sidewalk. So the condition of the zoning was to have sidewalk on one side of the street. As part of this development, we've got sidewalks on both sides of the streets in a note, not graphically shown because of the we didn't want to clutter the plan up, and both of those sides are 5-foot sidewalks. Normal sidewalks in a standard subdivision is usually a 4-foot sidewalk. So there's a little bit of a change there. The Nally Road item, so in our previous application, Nally Road was planned to be abandoned. Since that time of last winter, it has come to light that that road has been abandoned by council vote in 2015. Currently, our client's attorneys are performing a title search. We believe that Nally Road was an old city road that was a prescriptive easement right-of-way, not a fee title right-of-way, which makes a big difference in what that is and who that property belongs to. But with this plan, we've avoided it at this time. If that comes back later that it is in fact a prescriptive easement and it has been abandoned by the city, then we'll make those necessary changes, and that area probably just be added to common area or lots, either one, to make those lot sizes larger. The roundabout is fully the developer, the client's responsibility. There's no, we've had no consideration by the city to help with that roundabout situation. We have met with Bobby Elliott, the city engineer, many times about that intersection, and that was the entrance that he requested and he required as well. Water and sewer, water availability is not a problem. We've been alerted that that's no issue. There is a sewer concern. That sewer concern is about the lift station that is downstream of it. This developer has consented and agreed to enter into a development agreement to pay a pretty significant per lot fee that comes into a pretty sizable chunk of money to help make those necessary upgrades on that lift station as well.
How much is that per lot?
It's approximately, don't hold me exactly to this number, but it's around $600,000 or $700,000.
Now, again, if Nally Road is indeed abandoned, and I was not aware of that's the only entrance and exit into this development, is that not?
That is correct, sir.
So you got 196 homes, all trying to get in or out of onto Connors Road.
That's correct. And we are below the threshold, which is 200 lots for that second entrance.
Now, I only see one amenity shown on here. It's amenity A, right in the middle. Is there two others somewhere?
We do not graphically show those amenities. Those amenities are spelled out in the code as well. So either sport courts, tot lots, those kind of items as well. There's no plan to have a swimming pool or clubhouse on this development. Also, the HOA concern, I know that was brought up. We've been notified by our client that these tracks will not be allowed to be a part of the Mirror Lake HOA. So as a virtue of that, they will have their own HOA internal to them.
So they'll have to provide amenities for the 196 homes.
That's absolutely correct, yes, sir.
Why would they, if you know, I don't know if you know or not, Aaron, why would they not be allowed to join? Is there a reason?
There's speculative reasons, but I do not know the definitive reason.
No
What
one's
was
put
the
it down.
question, Mac?
I was just wondering why they wouldn't allow them to join. I just wondered.
We were alerted that they were not going to be able to allow it, and they said, we'll put the amenities in. Per code, we have like 6 options that are available to us.
Yeah.
And we've got at least 3 of those. 3 are required of those 6, and we've got 3 of those planned.
Can you use the name? Connors Landing at Mirror Lake, I mean, can you use the name? If they're not gonna allow you an HOA?
Question I don't know the answer to.
Okay, just wondering.
I think the answer to that question is yes.
They can use the name?
Yeah, it's protected by the First Amendment. They can say whatever they want or put whatever they want on the sign. We can't do anything about it, or Mirror Lake.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if they trademarked it.
the flag's still red, white, and blue outside.
I just didn't know I didn't know if they trademarked it or not. If they trademarked it, you couldn't use it.
But it is confusing with the other lot that's south of Connors Road, whatever that was called.
I do. I have a technical question.
I
You want
just-
to go, you got something, go ahead.
I actually, and I apologize because this is kind of out of place a little bit, but I have to ask the commission, in respect to the applicant, if we can please take a 2-minute recess for a moment. I need to address the applicant, and I need to address the commission as well on an item that just came to my attention, and I just need to clarify something first before we move on.
Granted,
Thank you.
But wait a minute, before you do, this may be germane to your discussion with you. On my application for preliminary plat approval, there is no signature. There's a place for it. I have no copy of any authorizing signature or anything, not on the plat, on the application. Page 2 says signature of property owner, and there's a notary signature on the next page. Says that Laura Mullins had personally had witnessed But there's no signature for the owner anywhere on here.
All right, I'm going to talk with the applicant for just a moment. I'll have to, and
Yeah.
I'll advise from there, okay? All right,
All
thank
right.
you.
Granted.
No. Pronounce his signature.
Well, there's a lot more problems than the lack of a signature.
But maybe he gives us a genuine excuse for taking it.
Well, I'm not surprised that the HOA is not.
Yeah, they're not letting them in.
That speaks volumes. The city engineer's not here, speaks volumes.
Yeah, I would think.
David? Yeah. We're going to start back regular development meetings soon.
Now, I've got on my calendar one for September. I haven't received notice of it's been canceled.
I don't know.
So my understanding is that we have, the same Wednesdays throughout the
That was perfect.
time,
But
but
it's coming up. I hadn't heard anything from him.
I haven't not either. It's a good question for, Mr. Charles. I've kept it on my calendar just,
Okay.
just
Yeah, me
in
too.
case.
Okay. I just wondered if I was,
I'll try to reach out to John and see what
what he says.
the chairman has to say.
Wait a minute.
Sorry, you're gonna have to
Not
go a little
hearing,
closer.
you're
I
gonna have to,
apologize.
let me get closer here.
So, one of the issues
I agree with that, without an application, Ms. Mullins here to testify, if you will. I agree with you. I think we can't make a decision because it's not an application. I agree with you.
Does that come with 65 and over?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to know what I've got to look forward to.
No, actually, in John, in my case,
Yeah.
it's 75.
God loves you so much.
Thank you, David. I need all of it I can.
You know, it's funny you mention this because, and I'm so thankful for DoorDash these days. I'm one of those people who have a DoorDash unlimited pass or whatever you call it. Sadly, I'm really ashamed to say that. But, you know, it's funny because I use it to order off the IHOP 55 and up menu, It's so much cheaper. I get exactly what I want. There's no way for them to verify my age. Before, I used to have to call up and sound like old, over the phone.
Exactly how does old sound? Right,
Yeah,
How's your counsel, right? I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna tell you to
Could you
stop
describe-
right here, because you're not getting, you're not
Could you
helping.
give us an example, Ron?
I had to kind of go into acting mode for a moment. But yeah, and then I walk in the restaurant and they're like so confused, like why are you thinking
I'm picking up from my granddad. Yes, my granddad.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I had to say, so.
Well, when you realize that the people that you've been calling old geezers are the same age as you are. So
Yeah, that happens.
I accepted that a long time ago.
Well, I look at it like, why is there a 55 discount to begin with? It's like you had twice the amount of time to get the money out.
That's so funny.
Good point.
Are we paused?
I think Aaron's looking for an email, I think.
You just take a look.
Hey, Ryan, can I ask another question then while we're paused?
Yeah, if it's technical in nature, yes.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we have to move on.
all right. Well, the last page of this packet here talks about to complete it, you gotta attach the following stuff, and you gotta have all these other things. And it says about here, it talks about, vehicular use, area, landscaping requirements. And I never saw anything in here, which is a concern of mine, about traffic impact or traffic study that you look into.
If you can ask me that when we get back into session, I can actually answer that now, but just repeat that as soon as we go back on the line.
All right.
If you want, then if you don't want, maybe, off that. Thank you, I didn't have that with me. I'll appreciate that. I'll say that on the mic.
are you ready? Okay, let's go back into session.
You should have saw my living room floor when I was going through all this stuff. It was out of control. Yeah.
Okay, Ron, we're back in session.
Think,
I have too many emails. Yes.
we can go back into session, this time, if you will. Okay, great. So we're coming back into session here, and I just wanted to correct one of my comments that I made in regards to this arbitration report and the density numbers and what that maximum and minimum was. And I laid it out in the first December report. I'll just read it out to you here directly. It says the current density of the developed sections of Ashley Highlands, the Falls at Mirror Lake, and Lot 0010, which is the third phase of the Falls at Mirror Lake is 0010. Would impact the proposed development plans considerably, as the current density of those areas is 4.019 dwelling units an acre, which is beyond the 2.4 dwelling units an acre approved in the arbitration agreement. The developer proposes approximately 23 units on lot 0010, which individually would equate to 1.97 dwelling units an acre. And combined with the remaining tracts subject to the arbitration agreement would result in 4.46 dwelling units an acre. So we're continuously lifting that number up of it's up and up and up and up. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. I mean, this is a plat application. We already went through a rezoning already. The property is actually is already zoned for what it is for what's being proposed. But it is important that we understand how we got to this point. That was the whole purpose of October and me putting the memo together and all of that prior to this development even coming into focus or even being submitted to us back in December, the original one. So I want to call that out. It is kind of important to know that because I'm sure that at some point in time, the folks who were a party of that agreement might approach us and wonder what's going on. So it's important that everybody understands that You know, that's at least from our attorney legally, that's what he's saying, that we can, that we don't have to actually abide by that agreement. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there for you guys.
So what are you saying the density is?
Well, I haven't done a density calculation on this section, and what it is here. I mean, it looks like, from what I recall from the December hearing, these lots look a lot larger than, what was proposed before.
That's fair.
That's correct, right? So, I mean, this would probably cut down on that density number, but, I mean, we're talking, I mean, probably not gonna be a whole lot. It's definitely not gonna get us underneath the arbitration amount. It's not gonna get us under 2.4. I mean, we'd be erasing houses. So, we gotta, so I need to correct myself on the mic. I said 3 point something odd dwelling units an acre, and it really was 4.46, so,
It seems to me that there are enough uncertainties here with this density thing, with uncertainties about traffic, with the signature, that we probably should table this.
I would agree with you, sir.
yeah, I'm sorry about that. You know, it really is the, you know, it is the prerogative of the commission to do as you wish. I do understand that there is some kind of technical issues that may not necessarily be related to the application itself, but just the ability for it to move forward. From my discussion during our recess with the applicant, he's adamant that he has submitted a document to us, this application, as a signed document from the owner of the property, or at least the representative for the owners, Kevin Spindell. I think there may have been a communication problem in the community development office where that application may not have reached me, which therefore has not reached you. So I can't confirm it. Unfortunately, I don't have access to Bobby at the moment, and I'm taking the applicant's word for that. But if you guys wish to see that document, of course, that's your prerogative to make if you feel that you need to have that in writing, you know, in front of you.
Well, there's that, there's the ownership of the land.
Yes, I spoke to the applicant as well about the ownership issue during the recess, and that was the original reason for the recess, because I did link just now while I was sitting here, I linked to the Douglas County GIS website. They had on there for this rear lot for just north of the railroad. It's parallel to the railroad. It's an easement that's listed, at least on the plan here. It shows a lot on the GIS that's supposedly, based on this, the GIS, it's owned by the Georgia Transmission Corporation. I was under the impression that the Georgia Transmission Corporation assigned an easement to Georgia Power in order to run these lines, and that's probably why it had easement on here. But it's also come to my understanding from the recess and talking with Aaron that that's actually not the case, and that JLC, Mirror Lake Sub 1, is the owner of that property as well, and that Douglas County has not updated the GIS software. So there's some loose end that I would have to confirm there, either before or after the fact, but again, that it goes back to the board's prerogative. We know what the requirements are to submit an application, and what the requirements are as far as getting owner signatures and things of that nature. Again, this is something that's been handled by my boss, Bobby Elliott. It hasn't been, I haven't really handled this. I brought it up in December about the ownership issue, but I never actually got any type of response from LGI or their attorney on it. So here we are.
I just feel a little uncomfortable. There are people who are not here tonight that we ought to be hearing from. And for myself, if the commission is willing, I would entertain a motion to table.
I would agree with you, Chairman. I would make a motion to table this at least for 30 days till we can confirm the application. Well, I happen to believe Mr. McCullough. Unfortunately, we're in the proof business, not the belief business, so I think we need to see it, and we need to clarify some things on the density.
I second the motion to table.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table this. Any further discussion?
Well, hold on a second. You were going to provide some traffic study information or something?
Well, that we can entertain the next,
So next, as we get into the other, I'd like to see that also,
A
okay?
traffic study.
Traffic, yeah, impact and study.
okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Is
All in
that
favor?
something that's doable in 30 days?
A study of the intersection that we have proposed
Well,
on Connors? Yes.
This impact, the impact of this development on Connors Road and this intersection with Connors Road, I mean, it's only essentially a single ingress egress. And for, what did we say, is 100 and, how many lots? 190, 194, 196?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right, and so you're looking at
Motion.
400 cars and
Tom, we have a motion on the floor to table this, that can all come up the next
That's
time we
what-
get together.
all right, well, I'm all for, I'm in favor of tabling it.
Well, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed, table for 30 days. There's just too much stuff missing.
I'm sorry?
There's just too much stuff missing that I think to make a reasonable motion.
We make sure that the neighborhoods are notified again of that hearing.
So, being that this is being tabled, the law does not require any type of a second notification because the first one is still considered good only if they table it and they announce a date for when that can be tabled. And now that they've said that it's 30 days, that is the public notice, unfortunately. So that's kind of where we are.
First Tuesday in October.
Yes, that's correct. First Tuesday in October.
Fifth.
The 5th? Okay.
October 5th.
All right, guys, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question, and maybe you can answer it. One of the issues that we have out there now is we don't have any services, like we're right next door to all of this development and have no internet. You know, there's no internet, no gas, nothing. And I mean, literally, you could throw a rock from my property and hit one of those new houses, that they just built there. So my question is, of course, we can get the, and like even with the sewage, if they develop across the street, are they gonna make if it's approved, are they gonna make sewage available for us? And what can we do to get us better service?
Yeah, in Douglas County. I mean, you guys, I mean, Mr. Daniel, if I'm not mistaken, you're in Douglas County, or you're outside the city limits?
We're across the street.
That, unfortunately, you gotta take it up with your elected officials over at the mausoleum over there, they call the courthouse. You gotta take it up with them over there. The Taj Mahal over there, they call courthouse at 8700 Hospital Drive. I'm sure they'll be happy to see you.
Well, let's get back on the agenda, please, if we can.
Yes,
Next item, Ryan.
thank you. So our next item, we have a amendment request to the permitted uses table. We had one last month as well. What this amendment is going to do, and this one is pretty simple here. We're still trying to clean up this truck stop language. Essentially, it's we're trying to attack not just truck parking or anything like that. And maybe attack is too strong of a word, but we're trying to tackle the issues related to some of the uses in our city that we don't want to promote. There's just certain uses that are just inherently not necessarily beneficial to the actual community at large, but they may be beneficial to maybe the country at large because it's truck traffic and, trucks transporting goods and things that we need every day. But we obviously have a certain specific image, I think, on portions of this city that make it just look like a massive truck stop. And that is really concerning because then people get the wrong idea about what our community is. So as a part of, I guess, building off of last month and why we decided to change the zones that it's actually a permitted use in, you'll notice that, let's see, I'm going to try to flip to the right page here. All right, so parking lot or structure as a primary use. You guys remember this one from last month, right?
Yes.
It was not a permitted use in there was a permitted use for the OMI zone for parking lots. And the reason that I left that in there versus the other zones that we changed at the time was because of the hospital primarily, and that if they own a lot that's next door but they don't merge the lots together, they should still be able to put a parking lot in there as a permitted use and not have to go through the city council in order to get a parking lot. And in the city council meeting, the last meeting, it was quite clear from at least two, well, I'll say one of the council members, and also Tom Barber as well, that they didn't really like that. They wanted it to be a little bit more controlled, because if Tanner does it, then what's going to stop somebody else from opening a truck stop in back of Tanner, for example, and gets to the land before they do? And the answer to that, of course, is nothing, right? Nothing would stop them from doing that. We, as planners, of course, in the office, Chris and I talked about this quite a bit, who would ever build a truck stop that far north of Pumpkin Town Road, which is a road that doesn't even allow for truck traffic to begin with? So we felt like it was very much insulated from that type of thing happening. But I don't think, one of the council members and Tom didn't feel comfortable with that possibility. So we're proposing now to change that OMI zone, or change that as a permitted use in the OMI zone to a special exception uses. So there would be no truck parking or parking as a primary use, as a permitted use in any zone at all in the city. As I explained to city council, and I'll just make this quick, as I explained to them, it's no different than cities all around the country, major cities, large cities that have Edison parking facilities and things like that. I don't know if anyone has heard of Edison parking here, but they're massive in the Northeast and in LA and a lot of other areas. But they buy the most prime real estate in the city and just pave it into a parking lot, and they're paying very minimal taxes. They're getting wild numbers as far as money is concerned, because the parking is so high, and it's almost impossible to get rid of them. It's like a black hole. It will never go away, and they want immense amounts of money from the city in order to turn it over to someone else. Yeah. So truck parking is no different than that. It's interesting because in cities we'd have to deal with car parking in the middle of a downtown that makes it less thriving. Atlanta is a poster child for that. In rural areas, we're seeing it in the opposite direction. We're seeing it from truck stops. They are becoming that black hole, basically. And we're trying to get rid of that and try, or at least try to push those types of, any type of uses that we would not look as favorable to the community at large. We're trying to kind of put a curb on that.
Question for you.
Sure.
And this is just from a citizen perspective.
Uh-huh.
For instance, if we see an impermissive use, who do we call to tell? You don't call the police. Who do we call? For instance, on Edge Road, there's been a Chevy Avalanche parked at that Love's truck at the truck stop for 4 months. I've caked pictures of it for 4 months. It's been sitting there. All the tires are flat. People are throwing trash in the back of it. It's sitting there. Who do we call? Say, hey, come tow this thing. Or at the Chevron across the street, when the trucks park on a city street, they're in the truck stop, and the Chevron's charging them $10 a night to park there. And they're getting $10 a night for the guys to park on the city street, because that's a city street that's blocked off. Who do we call as a citizen?
That's good revenue if you can get away with it.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you.
The person you would, in Villarica, unfortunately, there's no clear answer to that, because we all kind of, I guess, intertwine in some ways. So, but I would definitely say code enforcement would be the top place
Call Charlie?
to keep. Well, I would go to the head code enforcement officer, which is Peggy Allen.
Charlie's no longer code enforcement.
He's no longer code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Change jobs. Okay. Well, I just didn't know, because I see certain things. I'm like, who do I call?
Yeah, and if, of course, I always encourage the board, I encourage the HPC, anybody, that if they see some type of work that is being done, to make sure that they let us know. I get questions from the public sometimes, just like today, this morning, I had a question about someone. They said there's two people called me about trees being cut down somewhere, and I was like, I have no idea, because I don't actually assign those land disturbance permits, so it doesn't actually go through me. So it really depends on what it is. Some things might go to Bobby if it's land disturbance related. If it's related to cars and things like that, that's code enforcement.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea.
Good.
Yeah.
That's just as a citizen, because I'm telling you, I've seen this avalanche. I know what color it is. I've seen it sitting there for 4 months as I've driven by it. It's been sitting in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
Say it, I tell you, it's been there. It's been there for 4 months. So, well, I wanted to know, so we're trying to, and again, I don't want to run Love's out of business if they're allowing people to park on their property. What we're trying to stop is what I call the gypsy lots, right? Is that what we're trying to cut down on?
Yeah, we're really trying to make it a safer environment, honestly, overall. So,
Okay.
where obviously we don't want some of the negative things that come from a truck stop going into a place, but I also need to clarify two different things here. So there is and I apologize if I confused everybody, but there's a difference between a truck parking lot and a truck stop. As defined in our ordinance. I think we kind of went over that last month too. A truck stop has gas and maybe a retail component to it. A parking lot is just for parking, and that's that. So we're attacking both of those things tonight. The truck stop / travel center would only be a special use in the C2 zone and the I2 zone, not permitted in any other zone, and those are truck stops with gas. And then just truck parking or parking lots in general, this includes cars as well, as a standalone use would only be a special exception in the C2 and the I2 zone and now the OMI zone. So there's no permitted use anymore for in any zone for either of those uses.
Now, would there be any grandfathering?
No.
Okay.
If it's not already an application in for it, which I don't know if we do have any or not.
Okay.
Yes. She works with permitting, Whitney, as well, but
I wanna say we just issued a business license for a truck parking lot on Bedge Road.
yeah, I think so too.
No, that's just what we need. We're at,
We could have had a warehouse that generated tens of thousands of dollars in taxes, but now we get a parking lot.
y'all could always deny the permit. It'd been just as easy to deny the permit.
The problem is it was a permitted use in the zone
Yeah,
before
but
we
was gonna-
changed it.
It was gonna add hundreds of trucks to the road every day, and
Yeah, I
they
know.
were refusing to do anything to limit that. And they refused to bend it all, and all they had to do was move a little dirt, and they could have put the exit out on Liberty, and they didn't want to.
Now it could be 200 trucks, we don't know.
Depends
You
on
know?
what you guys allow to be permitted.
It's playing Russian
All you-
roulette we did,
all you
and
can do is
I think we
say-
got shot.
All you can say is, no, and no, next, no. It's very simple. My wife's good at it, no, simple.
Well, that's what I have for you guys, though. I mean, that's the only change that's permitted, or that's it's being advised or recommended at this time to the permitted uses table. Those two uses.
What is the commission's pleasure?
What are we being asked to do?
Change the permitted uses table for truck stops and also for for parking as a permitted.
To
as a
to
primary
allow
use.
to allow this, as you've got here in the new.
Well, it's to alter, the request is to alter the permitted uses table in the zoning ordinance,
Right.
as
As per this new.
advised tonight, yes.
It's highlighted in yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
I make a motion, we amend as requested by Mr. Johnson with regards to truck stops and truck parking lots in the city and amend the permitted and conditional land use.
Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'm sorry, if you could just give me 1 second to get myself a little organized here. I don't wanna screw somebody's application up.
I should have mentioned before everybody left that this item that we tabled is still going to come up before council next Tuesday. The fact that we tabled it.
It won't, being that it has been tabled and it's required, being that this is a prerequisite board, it can't move forward on September 21st.
Okay.
So technically, I guess to answer your question about the notice, you will probably get another notice then for the city council only, but not for the planning commission, so that October 5th is still valid. Okay, no problem.
So many things that go through us are immaterial.
They're not, believe it or not, you know, you get,
Well, I would ask that somebody make mention at the council meetings about what results and decisions have been made by the planning and zoning. That does not always happen.
Yeah, because some of the things that when I'm up there don't actually come to the commission. Like for example, last month I only had like 1 or 2 items that actually came to the commission. I did tell them at that time what the vote actually was, because I believe it was the mayor that asked me for one of those applications. But the remainder of them, which was the majority of them, actually didn't come to the planning commission at all. So I didn't have anything to say at that point. But I make sure I have it on their cover sheets. I mean, I've talked to the mayor a little bit about that as well. I put it on the cover sheets. They sometimes they still ask me because they want it on the mic. Same thing with the recommendations. Sometimes they don't. But
I'm just asking whether they ask for it or not. Seems to be the least we could ask as planning and zoning is that the council knows what our position and decision is.
yeah, absolutely.
They can ignore it,
I
as they do.
Yep. I feel like I have for the planning commission items, but I haven't for, of course, like variances and things of that nature, final plats. Yeah. Like, for example, the September 21st meeting, for example, we're going to have 3 variances, 2 plats, final plats, and I have 2 or 3 rezonings. One of them is inline, so, and one is Avamore, yeah. So I would for example, I would let them know inline and Avamore went to the planning commission, and this is the result. I have no problems with doing that, but the vast majority of them, when I'm up there, it's not consequential to them, you know. So I'll make sure I continue on that. Yeah.
Okay, next item, item E.
Yes. Yep. So this is another update to the zoning ordinance. This is in regards to multifamily and single-family attached design standards, which is essentially townhouses, apartments, things of that nature, anything with 3 units or more. We have, I updated 3 different sections here. One is related to the building orientation. We've had quite the number of these come forward and back and forth to the commission and also to the city council in regards to this kind of the placement of buildings on these multifamily lots, and how close they can be together, how far they have to be, if they have to do a push-pull from the front to give some sort of fenestration. I think everyone is kind of in agreement that something needs to be done about this section, because townhouses and apartments can't really be treated the same because they're not the same. It's a lot less people in a townhouse development than there ever would be in an apartment building. So we have to start, and instead of us just separating out townhouses and starting a whole new section, 9.4A or 3A or something like that, we decided to kind of clean this language up instead and make it clear about what exactly applies to a townhouse versus a multifamily, et cetera. And it's particularly with section 2C. So I'll just read this out really quickly. Multifamily buildings shall be oriented to the street or city road, a common open space, or cluster to form neighborhoods. Multifamily buildings shall not be oriented to parking lots. Accessory buildings, including residential garages, storage buildings, etc., shall be located behind the primary building. No primary or accessory building shall have service doors, garage doors, loading doors, or similar service entrances opening toward or oriented to the street or city road, which has massive consequences, as you can imagine, because then you can't really have a townhouse community with a front-loaded 2-car garage or something like that, like we've seen all across Cobb County and Fulton County, where they're primarily being constructed, and basically everywhere now that we're seeing townhouses. The intent of that was to have primarily townhouses have rear entry garages. We're trying to move away from that now. There's just from speaking with the developers, we've talked at length about Rockhaven Homes and how that approval that they eventually received took quite some time, took a lot of back and forth to come back and forth to the council, and they were not granted a variance from the sections we're about to go over, D&E, or I believe there was some others as well. But in either case, they would have had to basically do rear alley loaded garages, and on their plan they were already kind of pressed for space. So, of course, could someone argue that that's just a developer's problem and that's not the city's issue at all? Yes. I mean, the reality is, though, it is the city's problem, because the city is the one that enacted a rule that as far as the market is concerned, no one's interested in, and everyone's applying for variances from it.
But the market changes. Why do we bend over, pardon my French, why do we bend over and kiss the backside of a developer? Why do we make it easy on developers? They got the money, or they pretend they have the money. They have the banks in their back pocket. They develop, then they skip town. We don't ever see them again. Why are we gonna make it easy on them?
I think
Let's make it hard on them, and that way we get good products.
Yeah, I think a part of that also is the fact it's not just really a spacing problem. It's also, I mean, a lot of the cases with these developers, we know that they're putting up these, a lot of them are just two-story townhouses with two-car garages with a snout front, I like to call it. But I really have to question what the city's prerogative really is, and I have to really question what is the purpose of a rear alley loaded garage to begin with? And I don't know if a townhouse development really is, unless we're trying to like imitate brownstone buildings or something like that. I don't really know if there is a bona fide or legal reason why we could why we would want something like that. It seems like it's almost like it's just aesthetic in nature. But it's causing a lot of issues as far as everybody who wants to build a townhouse development. It's like almost like you're saying this is your prerequisite. You have to come before us for a variance because 90% of the market is not building rear alley loaded townhomes if you want a townhouse. So it kind of kills the market.
Do we really want townhomes?
Apparently so. If the city council approved townhouses as a part of
And in the last sentence of that section C, you seem to say townhouse developments are an exception from orientation requirements and may be permitted openings to orient toward the street or city road. So it's a moot point, right? I mean, you've already built in here. You've already built.
I think that's what he's asking
I'm
us
sorry,
to
yeah, I
decide
didn't
on.
explain that.
Yeah.
The bold and underline is what I'm proposing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the regular text is just what the ordinance currently
got you,
says.
okay.
Yeah.
But doesn't it just help them squeeze more units on a smaller piece of property? I mean, isn't that what we're doing?
I'm trying to think of a scenario to where how they would actually get additional space other than, I mean,
Because the way I look at it.
everyone is going to be different. You know,
If we require them to build a better product, it's going to push the price point up. It's going to not squeeze as many, just like the argument I made about the one over Mirror Lake. It's not going to squeeze as many cookie cutters in. They're going to be more desirable, and that's going to attract a better class of new citizen, which is what we want to do. I'm not just about, you can just grow for growth's sake, and you end up like other people in other counties around us, and that's why plan? Why bother planning if that's what we're going to do? The whole idea of planning is that it's like planning for retirement, it's planning for your kid's college. You plan for it, you lay out steps for it. If we're just gonna let it happen, we might as well just stand by the ocean and let the waves take us over. I mean, we gotta make some plans, and if by holding these developers' feet to the fire, which we haven't done for 20 years, and making them make better plans, making them have better products, making them develop streets, making them pave the streets, making them put the power and water in before they get COs, then we'd be better off. And I just think by lessening our requirements for them, and townhome developments in an urban setting, a city setting, I think townhome developments are resale values great. In a rural, semi-rural setting we're in, I think it turns into a rental real quick, and you don't end up with very much property value. Just my opinion. I'm not a real estate expert. We've got one here who sells it, but I just think I think we're different right now.
And of course, this is, and I'm not I don't want to influence your decision at all whatsoever, even though I'm proposing this.
Trust me,
you know, my, I guess my thought here is that, you know, I've never heard, and I'm not a real estate expert, but I've never heard anyone say that they won't buy a house unless it's rear alley loaded or a townhouse or anything like that. I don't know how much of a draw that is to a proposed purchaser of a townhouse. Or a house, really, but a townhouse primarily.
You'd be surprised people don't like the front garage, Ron. It's ugly.
Oh, I've heard that plenty of times.
So, I mean, it's just ugly.
I've certainly heard that. You know, like, why do you want more than half of your front elevation to be for cars
Big
and
metal-
things like that?
big metal door.
Big metal doors. So I totally understand that. Even though my opinion on that is different, but I totally understand why people feel that way.
That's a New Jersey coming out in you.
But look at the,
Buy what we can afford.
look at the renderings that we were provided in the earlier requests, different, Do you see how many of these houses have double garage doors that's 16 to 20 feet wide on the front of the house facing the street?
Every one of them.
Every one of them.
Now, granted, there's some great developments that have townhouses that are alley loaded. There's some, I know they're still building rear alley loaded, Brock-built homes in Atlanta. They have a much high quality type of construction. Tributary in Douglasville on Riverside, they only allow for rear alley loaded townhouses. They don't allow for front yard ones either. So it's not like it's unheard of. It's something that can very well be the case. What we're trying, I guess what our goal is as staff members is we're trying to not have it, we don't want to knock off our new zoning ordinance and all the great things that have come out of that. But what we do want to do is not be unrealistic to what the actual market is demanding and what is being required. I mean, we already have a huge increase in values all across this, the country really, but
Well,
across Villa Rica.
Let me ask you this, Ron. And I'm not trying to be argumentative, how do we know there's a huge demand for these townhomes? Is it because there's applications by developers?
Not only just because of the applications from developers, but also just from the data that they've been bringing to us.
All right, data that serves their purpose. That's not research. Research is when you are right wing, you turn on Fox. When you left wing, you turn on CNN. That's not research. Research is when you find things that are contradictory. In the legal world, you don't just find cases in sports, you find cases that run against you. Maybe townhome developments are being pushed because they can squeeze as much dollars as they can out of every square inch of dirt, and they don't really give a damn what happens after they're gone. Maybe that's what's driving the applications versus single home developments. Maybe that's not really a need. Maybe that's more of a want by those applying.
Yeah. And I guess there's no way for us to really know that unless the city itself employs someone to do a market study.
Yeah, maybe there's categorically, and maybe there is. I don't know. I'm not in the market. Doesn't mean that nobody else is. I'm just not.
I guess from my role, I'm just trying to clean it up in a way to where, because the city manager and I think I'll just stop there. The city manager had made it kind of clear to me that this whole multifamily section needs to be revisited again and relooked at because it seems like we're getting, and it seems like that some leaders or some folks are starting to become a little agitated with the fact that there's so many variance requests coming out. We have far more variance requests under this new zoning ordinance than we had previously under the UDC. A lot of that could just be owed to the fact that the UDC simply wasn't very clear and that it allowed a lot of things that we don't allow anymore. So we don't want to stop that. That to me looks like progress because we're building towards a better future. But when it comes to lumping townhouses and multifamily developments up, I mean, they really are two different things. They shouldn't be treated the same as far as site layout is concerned. I mean, as far as what's on the building, the facades and what they look like, I totally understand that, but I don't understand the actual spacing of requiring, like, for example, like 40 feet in between a townhouse development, or saying just because you have windows on the side or the windows open to certain rooms. It's like, how does that make a better development? I have no idea, but because you can have a development where it's closer together, but it also has far more fenestration on the front, trees everywhere, landscaping in between the buildings that are very thick, instead of just the basic. You can create a better development. You don't have to have larger lot sizes or larger spaces in between buildings to make a nicer development.
But developers aren't going to do that. They're going to do what is absolutely most beneficial to the bottom line. So how do you force them to do a better product? Is you imply these, you put this on them, and you force them to make them 40 foot apart. Well, if we do them 40 foot apart, what does that mean? That means we can't get as many in here. Well, how are we going to make money? We're going to have to build a better product. Thus, we have to sell it for more. That's the process. But if you squeeze them together, hey, we can clap them all together 5 foot apart. It really doesn't matter. People are going to buy these. That's my point. I think it's a chicken and egg argument, but I don't know which one comes first. But I know developers, and I'm often, and I happen to like Aaron who was here today, but I know developers, and developers are bottom line profit driven, which people in business are supposed to be, and that's not our job as a city is to line their pockets. It's not our job as taxpayers to line their pockets. It's not our job as citizens to agree with them. That's not our job. Definitely a job, at least I don't think it's my job, to agree with them. We should hold their feet to the fire as much as possible because they're going to make their money. They're going to get their interest. They're going to flip it to Tom, Dick, and Harry builders, and they're going to move on. And they're going to go on to the next project with their golf shirt and their khakis to the next commission meeting because they have a uniform they wear out here. And then they're going to go on to the next one, and I just think we hold the feet to the fire. Now, I agree with you. I think a townhome and apartment are different. I do. I think they're different. I think we should hold townhomes to a higher standard.
All right, we're approaching 8:30.
Yes.
We still have a couple of items to go here.
Yes,
Ron, you've got another item on this
yes.
particular agenda item, so.
I'll zoom through this really quick. The next section here for building, this is subsection D here. Buildings shall be located so that the window-to-window distance between buildings or facing exterior walls shall not be less than 40 feet as measured by a line perpendicular to the plane of the surface of said window. This distance may be reduced to not less than 30 feet for an exposure where a room is a bathroom or laundry/utility room or is used as a community or a group meeting room or for a similar purpose. And then I added in this section, it says this distance may further be reduced to not less than 20 feet should an exposure be for a bedroom, living room, kitchen, or other such living area. The community development director shall have discretion to determine which offset between buildings shall apply and may grant exception to this subsection. Shall topographic, orientation, or other site conditions make the distance required and practical. I guess I'll take this from the first sentence that I added here about the 20 feet. So that's already a regulation right now. That's actually in our, it shouldn't be, but it's separated from this design standards section. It's actually in the permitted uses section for each of the individual zones. Like, we have the one for AG, R1, R2, et cetera. It's actually on that chart. So I took it out of the chart and I pushed it also into this section, so it's actually in two spaces. But 20 feet is actually the minimum. We implemented that 20 feet. Chris Montesinos did maybe about 2 or 3 months ago. He approached the commission on that, and we made some changes to the single-family attached zone. So that's actually being carried over here as well to not just single-family attached, but it's also being carried over to the for multifamily as well. So that is a difference. We're just basically codifying it also to where it's opened up to not just this zone for single family attached, but it's also for all zones that would fall under the multifamily and single family attached. So MF1, MF2, things of that nature. And the third item here is individual buildings shall be located to avoid more than 2 buildings with parallel orientation to a public street unless offset by more than 20 feet, which I've changed now to 5 feet. Vary the orientation to lessen the massing. The maximum length of a multifamily building shall not exceed 192 feet. No more than 8 townhouse units shall be attached in a single row. So that just has to do with, of course, the orientation of the fronts, that push-pull that we talked about with Rockhaven Homes. Like one building's here, one building has to be set back 20 feet, and then the next one has to be set back 20 feet beyond that. So you're basically, I feel as if 20 feet is entirely too much. I mean, I think that's ridiculous, honestly, period. There's, if you're gonna, it's fine if the city wants not just parallel orientations to where when you're driving down the street, all the buildings are just directly in line. Of course, we don't really want that. We want some type of fenestration and ins and outs, but 20 feet is massive for a townhouse development. I mean, you're talking about buildings it's really placement for it's really placement for a multifamily apartment complex. That's something you would see for a complex where you'd want them 40 feet apart and 20 feet up and back and forth. So you give some more space and kind of more parkland. That's typically how we saw garden-style apartment complexes even. But in this particular case, we're seeing entirely too much of that. And I couldn't imagine going through a development where my neighbor has a garage in the next building, and his driveway is 20 feet longer than my driveway is, for essentially the same cost, but his backyard is much, 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 much smaller. We actually saw that with Rockhaven, but they had some topographic issues. We also have some other developments like the one down Highway 78 that came to us as well, the other townhouse development that's rental for seniors.
Ron, you've got, yeah, your logic is easy to follow here, but yes, but to go from 20 feet down to 5 feet, in my opinion, 5 feet is too little. I think that is really squeezing everybody. I'm going to recommend then, in this case, drop it from 20, but go down to 10 feet and hold it at 10.
Okay.
I just don't know if anybody else has a feeling about that, but I would think 10 feet.
And that's only just for the actual build, like if we were measuring from the right-of-way
Right.
to the edge of the first floor of the building, for example.
Right.
But beyond that, they can also have fenestration of additional 5 feet or what have you. But that's really essentially, you know, they're able to have quite a
Well,
number because you have to meet your
sure.
setback. You got to keep in mind you have a setback, and then you also have an additional amount that needs to go back and forth.
Yeah.
So that's
But
huge.
Would you accept the 10?
I still think it's a little too large, but it's fine. I mean, it's really it's a lot better than 20, but I don't really like 10 either. Honestly, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, you got to really picture it. I mean, we're talking a 10-foot difference between buildings at kind of at random. It's kind of like piano keys a little bit going down the street. But in either case, I mean, 10 is better than 20.
Okay.
So
Well, okay, and it's middle ground for us, so, okay, if you'll take 10, I'll be satisfied with that and shut up.
Well, what's the commission's pleasure? We've heard from Ron and Matt, Tom. Is there a motion to approve this? Anyone?
Yeah, I approve that we recommend this, or, this is another recommendation, yeah. So, as submitted with the one change to 10 feet instead of 20, instead of 5, rather.
Is there a second? I'll second. Motion on the floor to accept this with the change that Tom has recommended. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
2 and 2.
So are you guys in favor of the 5 foot?
No. No. I'm not in favor of modifying it at all. I'm in favor of leaving it where it is. I don't like the idea of I don't like the idea of more townhomes, the same way I don't like the idea of more apartments.
Okay. 2 and 2, and,
So typically when it's a split vote like this, because we don't have a fifth member, from what I understand, that just simply means that it doesn't pass. I guess that means this is considered a negative recommendation from the commission. I'm pretty sure it could still move forward to the city council. It just, yeah, it's just considered a negative recommendation. Okay, very well.
Is that a denial of all 3 changes?
yes.
Or just, okay.
Yeah, because I put them all together instead of separating them out, yeah.
Okay, last item on our agenda, hearing for a fifth member. Maybe alleviate this problem.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that we move this item on the agenda down to under item number 4, public comments, and that we handle this issue in executive session.
Well, I'd like first to hear what the staff has to say before because we don't know what we're talking about here.
Well, won't he be included with us, or?
Well, but let's hear what he says now, and then we decide what
All right,
we need.
your pleasure.
Sure. So the Michael, we have two applications that have been submitted. One of them was from, I believe, February, and another one was much more recent to that. But we have two or actually no, both of them from February.
And both of them were for historical preservation?
Yes, and for Planning Commission. So Michael Rickman, he is an architect downtown. He's had his practice here for quite some time, from what I understand, and he does not live in the city limits, I learned today. Thank you, Mr. Pilgrim. So I consulted with the city attorney, and he's actually not eligible to be a board member because he doesn't own property here. I talked with, and being that, of course, because of Mr. Marshman's passing, and I know that you've emailed me a few times now on selecting a new member and things of that nature. So in preparing for this meeting, we asked Elisa, I asked Elisa actually today to make sure that it's advertised on Facebook to confirm that. So I'm actually I'm recommending that we actually hold off on this until we're able to get maybe some more responses, or give it one last go to get some responses. I don't think it's really fair to the commission to only have to pick amongst one person instead of picking amongst a pool of applicants. That's kind of my recommendation for tonight. So, I mean, we only have really just one that's eligible right now, but of course, it's up to the commission what they choose to do. Mr. Lang, Douglas Lang, he's currently serving on the Historic Preservation Commission. That's the only commission that he's actually a part of as of right now. I know that he's voiced some interest in also being on this commission as well.
He did not on his application.
He has to me via email. As of recently, relatively recently, or phone actually, I believe one of the two. I don't know. But in either case, he has said that he's interested in doing both. So in either case, he's pretty, I guess, involved now. He's getting a little bit more involved, and he's come to some of the city council meetings and things of that nature. So that's the only one that we have that's actually a valid application as of right now. But he is one of the two newest members on the HPC.
So Ron, have we heard from Shirley, from Councilman Marchman?
Yeah, I have spoken to her about the potential for a letter of resignation, but I don't know if that's something that she indicated that she would put one in something into writing, but we don't need anything. Yeah,
But
that was my only discussion that I've had with her, and that was prior to his passing. That was just prior to that. So
Even had he not passed, he would be eligible for replacement because he's missed so many meetings.
But in kindness and stuff, we do request that first from the commission.
That's indeed what is written into the zoning ordinance.
That doesn't mean he's automatically kicked off.
No.
You know.
I'm not saying he's automatically kicked off. He has missed 3 out of 4, actually it's 2 out of 3 meetings. You become eligible to be replaced. It's in the zoning ordinance.
I think the wording is a little bit different there. It says that we can do, if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, then you're eligible for replacement by the city council, but that actually was never brought up to the city council. So he was never actually replaced in any way, or his seat was just vacated when the day of his passing.
Does Ms. Marchman have a recommendation?
that was really what I was getting at.
That's what they were there.
A recommendation?
Do you have anybody
I
she-
haven't
This is her
talked to.
ward, this is basically her,
Yeah, she have a
Yeah,
recommendation?
she has not indicated to me a replacement, especially because of the timing of everything.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bother her with that, but
Good idea.
I did check to ensure that the applicant that we do have, at least Doug, is he even in her ward, and he is. Yeah, he is in that ward. So in either case, and that's Ward 1, by the way.
depending on which property he decides to go with at that moment. I think
Well,
he,
it's
I think he
the-
has property in both. I don't know which one he's calling his primary, but that's really not here nor there.
Well, is it
Yeah,
going
it's
to
the one
be
on the
a
application.
standard procedure that replacements come before the commission for their approval?
Yes.
That's a change.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's never happened before.
So we never did that with Mac.
No.
It's always come directly from the council, or from the, yeah.
Yeah, There's a ability for the planning commission to recommend who they wish, and then that recommendation, just like with the applications, should be carried to the city council. So I guess if that's the case, moving forward, because I can't remember for David or Mac if we did that or not. I feel like we did, but I guess not. I guess we didn't. I thought we did.
I think we did on David. All I know is I was asked by a council member if I would be interested. I said, yeah. I filled out an application, and then I was told to come to city council meeting and get sworn in. Whether they voted on me at planning and zoning, I don't know. Okay.
I recall that we did.
Yeah, I
We
remember
did.
for David.
We
I
did,
can't-
because you weren't here and we voted you in. And
Yeah.
Yes.
you were-
May have. I may have been in court. I don't remember. I remember coming to city council. I remember getting sworn in because it was the other way. The building was turned around.
Planning and zoning heard
Did you? Okay.
Mr. Pilgrim.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Okay, I don't remember. And again, I didn't come
Before you
to,
knew it.
but yeah, before I was in knowledge.
I like the idea of it coming before the commission.
I do too.
Me
To
too.
my knowledge, not happened before.
Good deal.
And are you recommending that we not consider this?
Correct.
I would like
Yes.
not to
Yeah.
recommend.
I don't think that it's appropriate to do so when we have a potential. It hasn't really truly been opened up to other applicants.
Do we need to
So
have a vote on it?
no,
No.
we could just. Actually, you know what? Yes, because it's on our agenda. I apologize. I'll do it.
I'll make a motion that we table the application for the new member or replacement member of the commission till 30 days. Is that fair?
That's
For
fine.
30 days, till the
Yep.
next meeting in October.
That gives us some time to.
I second it.
Moved and seconded that we delay this for 90 days? Oh, I'm sorry, 30 days?
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
30.
I said 90, I changed it. Okay, do you have any other comments? Ron?
No other comments.
Okay. We have two members of the audience who have stuck this through. And at this time, we're open for public comments, if you would care to make any observations.
We just want to get a copy of the plat for that Commerce Landing.
Of course,
We don't
yes.
have that.
We'll have a lot of other comments at the next meeting when that comes back up.
Okay. All right. I will move for
Go ahead.
adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. You're welcome, bro. Hang on, I'll give you that.
Imagine sending out all 400 certified letters by yourself. I lost a whole week. My whole week was evaporated because of that. It's just like that. Hey, yes, absolutely, no problem.